You have spent this day trying to read tomorrow from the evidence of today. You have looked at one letter and imagined the answer that may follow it. You have heard uncertainty in another person's voice and carried that uncertainty into hours that have not yet arrived. You have seen a figure upon a page and allowed it to become a prophecy. You have watched a door remain closed, listened to a silence that seemed too long, or ended the evening with the uneasy feeling that nothing moved, nothing answered, and nothing changed. Yet tomorrow has not spoken. You have spoken for it. You have taken the final appearance of this day and placed it upon the face of the next. You have said, because this is what I see tonight, this must be what I meet in the morning. Because no answer came today, tomorrow must contain more waiting. Because the money is not visible now, tomorrow must continue the story of insufficiency. Because another person was uncertain, tomorrow must bring rejection. Because the day ended without evidence, the unseen must be empty. But the unseen is not empty, and tomorrow is not yet committed to the appearance from which you are judging it. A day is not a seed merely because it occurred. It becomes a seed when you carry its meaning forward and plant it in imagination. The event may belong to today, but your interpretation gives it permission to enter tomorrow. You carry the silence into sleep. You carry the number. You carry the expression upon another person's face. You carry the unfinished conversation. Then you awaken and call the repetition fate, never noticing that you escorted the old state across the threshold yourself. Tonight, I would have you stop at that threshold, not by denying what happened, not by pretending the letter was pleasant when it was not, not by calling uncertainty, certainty, or forcing yourself into an excitement the body cannot honestly receive. You will learn something quieter and far more powerful. You will learn how to leave today where it belongs, how to select the emotional result you wish tomorrow to express, and how to let sleep carry that result into the deeper chambers of consciousness without struggle. Before we go farther, make one small outward gesture that reflects this inward decision. Subscribe to this channel, not as a meaningless habit, but as a quiet sign that you are no longer willing to return night after night to the same fearful predictions. Let the act represent your decision to return to these teachings until assumption becomes more natural to you than anxiety, and until the night becomes a place of creation rather than a courtroom in which tomorrow is condemned before it arrives. Subscribe now, and let that simple movement become your first refusal to live unconsciously. You are not purchasing favor from the law, nor are you proving your worth through an outer action. You are giving yourself a place to return whenever the old world attempts to persuade you that appearances are final. Each return may remind you that imagination, not circumstance, possesses the deeper authority. Then leave even this gesture behind. The true decision is made within. Now become quiet enough to consider one question. What if tomorrow has not yet decided how it will meet you because it is waiting to receive the identity in which you fall asleep tonight? Do not answer hastily. Let the question remain open. You have been taught that tomorrow is an independent territory moving toward you with its own hidden judgments. You imagine it waiting beyond midnight, already filled with conversations, figures, opportunities, refusals, meetings, delays, and decisions. You lie in bed, as though an entire world has been completed somewhere outside you, and your only task is to endure the suspense until morning reveals whether that world is favorable. But tomorrow is not standing fully formed beyond the clock. Tomorrow, as you experience it, is inseparable from the state in which you enter it. The world you meet is not only a collection of events, it is a field interpreted through identity. The one who falls asleep expecting rejection awakens prepared to find it. The one who falls asleep in financial danger sees every ordinary obligation through the atmosphere of scarcity. The one who falls asleep rehearsing conflict enters the morning already defending herself against words not yet spoken. She believes tomorrow brought the state. In truth, she brought the state into tomorrow. This is why the night matters. The night is not merely an interval in which the body becomes inactive. It is the hour in which the noise of the visible world begins to lose its command. The doors are closed. The duties of the day recede. The voices that seem so authoritative become memories. The letter remains upon the table, but it is no longer speaking unless you give it speech. The account remains as it is, but it cannot enter the body unless imagination carries it there. The outer day grows quiet. Imagination becomes more receptive. What you repeatedly felt as unavoidable during the day may now be examined as a state rather than accepted as a fact about tomorrow. Perhaps today did not go as you hoped. That is possible. Perhaps someone disappointed you. Perhaps money seemed limited. Perhaps an opportunity did not appear. Perhaps you waited and received no answer. Perhaps the day contained nothing dramatic at all, only the dull heaviness of sameness. You need not call the day successful. You need not praise what wounded you. You need only understand that today is finished as an outer event, while its psychological continuation remains optional. This distinction is the beginning of freedom. The event may be complete in time, but unfinished in meaning. You decide whether it becomes tomorrow's instruction. Suppose you received an unwelcome letter. The paper may contain a fact requiring attention. You may answer it tomorrow. You may seek advice. You may take whatever practical step wisdom reveals. But the letter does not contain the whole of tomorrow. Fear adds the rest. Fear sees the next letter, the next difficulty, the next refusal, the next month. In a few minutes, one page becomes a lifetime. Leave the letter upon the table. Let it remain one page. Do not allow it to write the morning before the morning exists, or perhaps the trouble is silence. Someone important has not spoken. You have spent the evening entering their mind, supplying motives, imagining conclusions, and hearing the words you fear they may eventually say. But you do not know. You know only that silence exists now. The rest has been written by imagination. Do not accuse imagination. It is performing its natural office. It gives form to what is unseen. But because you have used it unconsciously, it has accepted fear as its director. Tonight, you may direct it differently. You do not need to hear the exact desired words if this feels forced. Begin by refusing the feared ones. Let the silence remain silent. Do not fill it. Do not place rejection inside it. Do not make it the voice of abandonment. Silence may remain in the outer world while consciousness ceases speaking against itself. This alone changes the seed carried into sleep. Perhaps an unfavorable figure has disturbed you. You saw a sum and immediately entered tomorrow as the one who will not have enough. You imagined another demand arriving, another opportunity failing, another month becoming difficult. The figure may be accurate concerning the present account. It is not an oracle. It does not know every road through which provision may come. It does not know which idea may occur to you. It does not know who may remember you. It does not know what conversation, arrangement, opportunity, payment, or change of circumstance belongs to the bridge. The figure reports. It cannot see tomorrow. Why then should you permit it to predict what even the senses cannot yet observe? Read it if necessary. Respond to it wisely, but do not sleep inside it. There is a great difference between attending to a circumstance and using it as the material from which identity is built. You may attend to the letter without becoming condemned. You may attend to the figure without becoming poverty. You may acknowledge silence without becoming forgotten. You may admit that nothing visible moved today without deciding that nothing invisible is moving now. The unseen is not empty. It is simply beyond the present reach of the senses. A seed under soil appears inactive to the eye. A decision forming in another mind makes no sound in your room. A chain of ordinary incidents may already be gathering without announcing its relationship to your desire. You do not need to invent hidden movements merely to comfort yourself. You need only stop claiming that no movement exists because you cannot observe it. That claim is not realism. It is imagination wearing the mask of fact. The night allows you to remove that mask. When the outer day is active, circumstances demand response. People speak. Work calls. Duties present themselves. The senses gather report after report, and the mind reacts before it has time to remember its creative office. But now the day is withdrawing. You are being offered an interval. No one is asking you to solve the whole future in this moment. The letter is not growing more severe because you rest. The silence is not becoming more meaningful because you lie awake. The account is not improved by the tension in your shoulders. Tomorrow is not made safer by rehearsal. You may stop. This stopping is not failure. It is the interruption of unconscious creation. All day you have been giving emotional reality to possibilities you do not desire. Now you cease supplying them. You do not have to replace them immediately with magnificent visions. First, let the old prediction end. No more deciding that because today was difficult, tomorrow must inherit difficulty. No more assuming that the last word spoken today must become the first word spoken tomorrow. No more treating tonight's mood as a prophecy. The day may close without becoming law. You may say inwardly, "This is where today ends." Let the sentence be final. This is where today ends. The conversation ends here. The worry ends here. The interpretation ends here. The body may still feel the momentum of the day. That is natural. A wheel continues turning after the hand has withdrawn. Let it slow. Do not push it again by worrying about whether you have released enough. The body does not need to become perfectly calm before another state is possible. A new state may begin as a simple refusal. I will not use today to predict tomorrow. Perhaps that is the only assumption you can accept honestly tonight. It is enough. I will not use today to predict tomorrow. You are not claiming to know every favorable event that morning will bring. You are withdrawing the least desired prediction. The future opens. Perhaps another sentence becomes possible. Tomorrow contains more than today has shown me. Let that remain without strain. Tomorrow contains more than today has shown me. The senses cannot argue honestly with it, because the senses have not visited tomorrow. Reason may say the statement is too hopeful, but reason itself continually predicts the future from incomplete evidence. It assumes repetition and calls the assumption intelligence. You are simply selecting another use of the same faculty. If tomorrow contains more than today has shown, then the path may turn. An answer may come. An idea may occur. Attention may soften. A conversation may be less difficult than expected. An ordinary incident may reveal the next stone. You do not need to decide which. The emotional result matters more than the conscious design of the sequence. What would you feel if tomorrow no longer seemed like a judge approaching to examine you? Perhaps you would feel room. Perhaps the chest would no longer be forced to contain an entire day that has not happened. Perhaps you would allow morning to arrive without meeting it in advance. This is the beginning of assuming the result, not a dramatic picture, a change of relation. Tomorrow is no longer an enemy beyond the door. It is an unfinished field. The state carried into it matters. You have often fallen asleep in the mood of one awaiting a verdict. The body rests upon the bed, but inwardly you stand outside a closed chamber. Somewhere a decision is being made. Somewhere another person is choosing. Somewhere the future is determining whether you may feel safe. You listen. You wait. You imagine. But tonight you may leave the door. Let those who must decide, decide. Let those who must speak, speak in their own hour. Let the events that must meet one another continue beyond your supervision. You return to the chamber of being. Here, no external verdict is required before a state can be selected. You may select dignity before another person approves. You may select support before every means is visible. You may select guidance before the path is clear. You may select peace before the question is answered. These are not rewards stolen from tomorrow. They are states available to consciousness now, and tomorrow will be encountered through whichever state becomes your resting place. Notice that I do not ask you to force joy. The mind may be tired. The heart may still carry concern. You do not need to leap from fear into celebration. Move from prediction into openness. This is the sacred first movement. The feared tomorrow is not fact. The old conclusion is not required. The bridge is unfinished. Let openness become the first form of relief. You may say, I do not know what tomorrow will contain, but I will not fill it with punishment tonight. This is honest. I do not know the exact conversation, but I will not hear rejection before anyone speaks. I do not know how the matter is resolved, But I will not use ignorance as proof that resolution is absent. I do not know which road opens, but I will not declare that no road exists. The unknown becomes spacious when you stop using it against yourself. You have called the unknown dangerous, because fear entered first and furnished it. Fear placed rejection in one corner, ruin in another, disappointment near the door, and conflict upon the bed. Then you entered and said, "Tomorrow feels terrible." But you were feeling the room imagination had furnished. Remove the furniture. Leave tomorrow open. You do not need to furnish it completely with desired scenes yet. An empty room is kinder than one filled with catastrophe. Let morning bring its own light into it. Perhaps later in this journey, you will choose the emotional signature of fulfillment. You will learn to rest in the aftermath, to revise the day, to select brief assumptions, and to let the state akin to sleep carry them beneath conscious effort. But for now, understand only this. Tomorrow is listening tonight. It listens not to your lips alone, but to the identity beneath them. You may say, "Tomorrow will be wonderful," while inwardly feeling that you are about to be judged. The words are hopeful. The state is fear. Or you may say almost nothing, and quietly decide that you will no longer enter morning as the condemned one. That quiet decision carries authority. Tomorrow listens to the state in which you rest. If you rest as one whose life is against her, every event will be read through opposition. If you rest as one for whom the future remains open, possibility has room to appear. If you rest as one supported beyond the present evidence, you become more capable of seeing support when it takes an ordinary form. If you rest as one whose worth is already established, another person's temporary mood no longer controls every action you take. The state influences perception. Perception influences conduct. Conduct influences relationship and opportunity. And beyond all that conscious sequence lies the mysterious correspondence between assumption and experience, which reason cannot fully trace. You do not have to trace it. You need not know how one inward change touches a conversation, a decision, an opportunity, or a path not yet visible. The law does not ask you to become the architect of every incident. It asks you to select the state. The bridge carries the state into expression. You may have been trying to construct the bridge before selecting the shore. No wonder the mind is exhausted. It has attempted to place every stone. Who will speak? What will they say? When will the letter come? Where will the money appear? What must happen first? What if this person refuses? What if the plan changes? The conscious mind cannot answer all of these, yet it continues asking as though anxiety might eventually produce omniscience. Release the questions. You do not need to know every step in order to choose how the completed matter feels. Perhaps the emotional result is simple. Relief, not triumph. Not excitement. Relief, the sense that the matter no longer has to be carried. Can you permit one breath of that relief before the outer answer comes? Not because you have proved how it will be solved, because you have decided not to make worry the condition of its solution. Perhaps the breath softens slightly. That is enough. The body has experienced a fragment of the end. The world did not give permission. Consciousness did. This is the order you are learning. You do not wait for tomorrow to tell you what you are allowed to feel tonight. You select tonight the state through which tomorrow will be met. Perhaps you select only, "I am not condemned by today." Let it become quiet. I am not condemned by today. Today may have contained an error. I am not the error. Today may have contained delay. I am not delay. Today may have contained silence. I am not silence. Today may have contained insufficiency. I am not the visible figure. Today may have contained disappointment. I am not the end of the story. The divine awareness remains open. I am. Before the letter, I am. Before the decision, I am. Before another person's expression, I am. Before tomorrow, I am. Tomorrow will receive the identity joined to this awareness. Do not join it carelessly to today's last appearance. Do not say, "I am still rejected because no answer came." Say only, "No answer came today." The identity remains open. Do not say, "I am without support because a figure appears unfavorable." Say, "This figure belongs to the present report." The identity remains open. Do not say, I am forgotten, because the room is silent. Say, silence is present. The identity remains open. This precision prevents events from entering the divine name and clothing it without your consent. Tomorrow listens to the name you accept. The phrase, make tomorrow obey you, does not mean you threaten the day or control every person within it. It means you stop allowing one outer event to dictate the inner identity from which the day will be experienced. You command no human being. You select being. You do not command another person to speak. You select being cherished and respond from that state. You do not command one channel to produce money. You select being supported and remain receptive to natural means. You do not command every event to become pleasant. You select the inner position from which no temporary event possesses the right to define the whole. This is true authority. It is quiet. It can be practiced upon a pillow. No one else knows when you cease carrying today forward. No one sees the instant you refuse to imagine tomorrow's disappointment. No one hears the inner sentence through which you leave the future open. Yet this private movement may alter the whole quality of morning. You may awaken with the same circumstance before you and find that you are no longer the same person before the circumstance. The letter remains, but panic has less authority. The silence remains, but you do not immediately become abandonment. The figure remains, but intelligence is no longer buried beneath catastrophe. The unchanged circumstance meets a changed state. This alone begins another sequence. A different thought occurs. A different action becomes natural. A different word is spoken. A different opportunity becomes visible. A different response is invited from others because the old role is no longer performed with the same conviction. The bridge often begins with changes too subtle to be called miraculous. But do not despise the subtle beginning. The first miracle may be that tomorrow no longer feels predetermined by today. The future returns to possibility. The body stops preparing for a verdict. The mind ceases serving as the voice of every person who has not yet spoken. You are no longer psychologically living through the morning while the night is still here. You return to this room, this bed, this breath, this hour. The future may remain beyond the walls. You do not have to enter it. Let tomorrow remain unvisited. It will come naturally. You need not travel there through worry. You need not stand at the morning's door before sleep. The night has its own purpose. The night receives impression. The night allows the senses to loosen. The night gives imagination a field less crowded by visible demands. Use the field gently. Do not plant 1,000 statements. Do not attempt to force a harvest before dawn. Plant one relation to tomorrow. Tomorrow is not against me. Perhaps the mind cannot yet accept that fully. Then plant something simpler. Tomorrow is not yet decided against me. That may be enough. Tomorrow is not yet decided against me. The silence has not decided it. The figure has not decided it. The changed plan has not decided it. Today's disappointment has not decided it. The old memory has not decided it. Tomorrow remains open to the state accepted now. Feel no obligation to become excited by this. Let it bring space, a wider room within. No immediate verdict, no necessity to predict, no requirement that you know. The body may rest inside an open future more easily than inside one filled with imagined catastrophe. This is the gift you give yourself tonight, not certainty of every incident, freedom from the false certainty of fear. Fear has claimed to know too much. It knows the answer will be no. It knows the money will not come. It knows the person will remain distant. It knows the path will be difficult. It knows tomorrow will repeat today. But fear knows nothing beyond its own state. It has mistaken familiarity for prophecy. You are not required to accept its prediction. You may let fear speak and remain unmoved in meaning. There is the old forecast. It is not tomorrow. Tomorrow has not arrived. There is the old memory. It is not tomorrow. There is the present circumstance. It is not the whole of tomorrow. Separate them. Let today become today again. Not the opening chapter of an inevitable future. Only a day that has ended. You may close it. Imagine closing a book without deciding the next chapter. The page ends where it ends. You do not tear it out. You do not rewrite it now. You simply close the cover. Tomorrow's page remains unwritten in form. The emotional ink is being chosen tonight. Do you write from fear? Or do you allow the page to remain open to relief, support, clarity, affection, and favorable movement? You need not compose the whole chapter. Choose the atmosphere. Perhaps the page feels lighter. Perhaps the words upon it are ordinary. A peaceful morning, a clear thought, a helpful conversation, an answer that brings movement, a natural sense that life is not fighting you. No great spectacle is required. Tomorrow may obey the state through a series of simple events. Let simplicity be enough. The desire to control every dramatic result often hides the fear that the essence will not arrive. Trust the essence. If relief is selected, let the bridge choose how relief becomes visible. If being cherished is selected, let love find its appropriate expression. If support is selected, let provision use channels beyond the one you presently watch. If guidance is selected, let the next step appear when it can be taken. You are not ordering the middle, you are choosing the inward destination. This reduces tomorrow from a burden to a field of expression. You no longer have to carry it. Let it carry the impression you give it now. The impression need not be forceful. Wax receives a seal through steady contact, not through violence. Let the body become the wax. Let one quiet assumption rest upon it. Tomorrow contains movement in my favor. Or, I awaken inside greater order. Or, what is necessary becomes clear. Or simply, tomorrow is open. Choose only what feels restful. You do not have to repeat it continually. This opening section is not yet asking you to enter the final practice. It is asking you to understand that tomorrow is not the master of tonight. The relation can be reversed. Tonight may give tomorrow its first instruction, not through command shouted into darkness, through identity accepted as sleep approaches. The one who sleeps as abandoned carries one instruction. The one who sleeps as cherished carries another. The one who sleeps as threatened carries one instruction. The one who sleeps as supported carries another. The one who sleeps as defeated carries one instruction. The one who sleeps with the end still open carries another. You are learning to choose the instruction before unconscious habit chooses it for you. That is all. No great labor. Conscious selection in place of automatic prediction. Perhaps the mind asks, what if I fall asleep worrying despite all of this? Then you have not committed a crime. You may awaken and choose again. One difficult night does not command every morning. The law is not waiting to punish you for being human. The purpose of this teaching is to return power, not create another fear. You do not need to police every thought. You need only recognize the direction in which you are traveling and turn gently when you notice the old road. Tonight, the turn is simple. Away from predicting tomorrow through today, toward leaving tomorrow open to another state. You may still feel today. You may still remember. You may still care. None of this prevents the turn. A vessel may change direction while the waves of the old course still strike its side. The water does not become calm instantly, yet the destination has changed. Let the inner vessel turn. No need to see the new shore. No need to calculate the distance. Only turn. Today is finished. Tomorrow is not condemned. The night is creative. Imagination is becoming receptive. The state remains yours to select. You will learn, as this journey continues, how to enter tomorrow from completion rather than fear, how to close the night court, how to revise the day, how to assume without strain, and how to fall asleep in the quiet aftermath of fulfillment. But not yet. Do not attempt the whole journey at once. For this moment, you do not need to solve tomorrow. You do not need to determine the conversation. You do not need to discover the financial answer. You do not need to enter another person's mind. You do not need to know which door opens. You do not need to see the bridge. You need only stop predicting tomorrow from today. You need only stop predicting tomorrow from today. Most people believe tomorrow begins when morning light enters the room, when the eyes open, when the feet touch the floor, and when the visible duties of another day announce themselves. They imagine that until that moment, tomorrow remains far away, sealed behind the turning of the clock. But tomorrow begins much earlier. It begins the moment consciousness gives emotional reality to something that has not yet occurred. You may still be lying in tonight's room. The curtains may be closed. The house may be quiet. The body may be supported by the bed. Yet inwardly, you may already be standing in tomorrow. You hear the conversation before anyone speaks. You see the expression upon another person's face before you meet them. You read the answer before the letter arrives. You feel the disappointment before a decision is made. You experience the pressure of an obligation before the hour in which it must be addressed. The body remains in the night, but imagination has crossed into morning. And imagination does not travel as a silent observer. It enters tomorrow clothed in a state. It enters as the rejected one, the worried one, the one who expects another delay, the one preparing to defend herself, the one who believes the future is approaching with a demand she may not be able to meet. Then you call this anticipation. But anticipation is imagination extended forward. It is the present occupation of a future state. You are not merely thinking about tomorrow. You are becoming, now, the person you expect to be tomorrow. This is why anticipation can exhaust the body before the event arrives. You have already begun living the event in consciousness. You have supplied the room, the people, the words, the consequences, and the emotional conclusion. The clock calls it tomorrow. Consciousness calls it a state occupied now. Let that distinction become clear. The clock divides experience into dates and hours. It says the meeting is tomorrow. The payment is due tomorrow. The conversation may occur tomorrow. The answer may come tomorrow. But consciousness does not wait for the calendar. The moment you feel yourself into the imagined event, you are there psychologically. The moment you accept rejection as likely and begin suffering from it, rejection has become a present state. The moment you imagine the financial difficulty and feel the body contract, scarcity has become a present state. The moment you rehearse the difficult conversation and hear yourself defending your worth, conflict has become a present state. The future event may never occur in the manner imagined, yet the state has already been experienced. You have paid an emotional price for a tomorrow that has not arrived. And because the state feels real now, it influences the manner in which you will meet whatever does arrive. A woman spends the night imagining that another person will speak coldly to her. She hears the tone. She prepares her answer. She feels herself misunderstood. By morning, the conversation has occurred many times within her. Then she enters the actual room. Her body is guarded. Her eyes search for confirmation. Her voice contains the defense she rehearsed. She hears ambiguity as accusation. She answers not only the words spoken, but the whole imaginary conversation she carried into the room. The other person responds to her state. A sequence begins. Later she says, "I knew the conversation would be difficult." But did she know? Or did she enter it already living from difficulty? This is not blame. I do not tell you that you consciously created every word another person spoke. I tell you that the state occupied in advance became the lens through which the event was perceived and the identity from which you participated. That is where your immediate freedom lies. You may not control every human choice. You can cease entering tomorrow as the self who expects the least desired choice. Suppose you fear that someone will reject you. Perhaps the relationship is uncertain. Perhaps the other person has been silent. Perhaps their last words left you without clarity. Tonight, imagination enters the next conversation. You see their face. Before they speak, you have decided what their expression means. You hear the refusal. You feel the ache. You imagine the hours after the conversation and the story you will tell yourself. Tomorrow has not arrived, but you are already rejected in consciousness. The body does not say, "This is merely rehearsal." It participates. The chest tightens. The breath shortens. The eyes resist sleep. You believe you are preparing for pain, but you are experiencing pain now. What protection has this given you? If the feared event never occurs, you have still suffered it. If a difficult event does occur, you meet it already depleted. If the conversation is neutral or loving, your guarded state may prevent you from receiving it clearly. Worry claims to prepare you, yet often it only occupies you. It gives the future a present body. This is why you must become conscious of anticipation. You need not fear it. You need not condemn yourself whenever the mind moves ahead. The mind has learned to do this because it associates prediction with safety. It says, if I imagine the danger first, I will not be surprised. If I prepare every answer, I will not be powerless. If I expect disappointment, disappointment will hurt less. But pain imagined in advance does not become painless. You suffer first in imagination and perhaps later in fact. You pay twice for one event, and sometimes you pay for an event that never comes. Let the habit be seen. Then you may choose another journey into tomorrow. For imagination can travel forward in completion as easily as it travels forward in fear. The faculty is not the enemy. It is the vehicle. You have used the vehicle to visit rejection, scarcity, conflict, delay, and disappointment. Now you may use it to enter the quiet aftermath of resolution, not through force, not by demanding an extravagant emotion. You need not imagine yourself celebrating wildly in the morning. You need not create a dramatic scene in which every person behaves exactly as commanded, and every circumstance changes at once. Go beneath the spectacle. What would tomorrow feel like if the essential matter were no longer threatening you? Perhaps you would feel ordinary. That is important. Fulfillment often feels more ordinary than fear imagines. Fear is dramatic because it is always announcing danger. Completion may feel like the absence of the need to think about the matter. The conversation has gone well, and now you are considering something else. The obligation is answered, and the body no longer holds the figure. The decision has been made, and the inner courtroom is empty. The answer has come, and silence no longer requires interpretation. Enter this quietness. You do not have to see every detail. Feel what is no longer being carried. This is entering tomorrow from completion. You enter not as one approaching the solution, but as one living after the question has lost its urgency. The clock still calls the event tomorrow. Consciousness calls completion a state available now. This is the reversal. The future is not brought physically into the room. Its emotional consequence is accepted before physical evidence appears. You may say, how can I feel relief when nothing has changed? Because relief is not a substance hidden in tomorrow's event. Relief is a state of consciousness you have assigned to that event. You believe the answer will give it to you. You believe the money will give it to you. You believe the person's words will give it to you. But the state is known within. You have felt relief before. You know its texture. You know how the mind behaves when a burden has been removed. You know the subtle release that follows completion. You may permit a small measure of that state now, not to deceive yourself, to stop deceiving yourself in the opposite direction. For when you feel tomorrow's rejection now, you do not call that deception. You call it realism. When you feel tomorrow's ruin now, you call it caution. When you feel tomorrow's argument now, you call it preparation. Yet none of these events has occurred. You have accepted emotional reality without physical evidence. You already understand the mechanism. You have simply used it most naturally in the direction of fear. Now use the same faculty consciously. If you can feel the consequence of an imagined disaster, you can learn to feel the consequence of an accepted end. You need not produce it with equal intensity immediately. Fear has had years of rehearsal. Completion may begin quietly. Perhaps it begins with the sentence, I do not need to live through tomorrow before it comes. Let that release the mind from its journey. I do not need to live through tomorrow before it comes. The conversation can remain unspoken. The letter can remain unread. The decision can remain unannounced. The morning can remain unopened. Then, when the mind has returned to tonight, you may select how you wish to enter tomorrow. Not the exact circumstances, the identity. Would you enter as one who is held, as one whose life contains support, as one who is not easily condemned by another's mood, as one capable of meeting the day without the old prophecy? Perhaps the state is simple. I meet tomorrow as one who is guided. You need not know where guidance leads. The state means that you are not entering the morning alone against a hostile future. Or perhaps, I meet tomorrow as one who is supported. You need not name the channel. Support may express through your own clear judgment, another person's assistance, an opportunity, an adjustment, a remembered idea, or a change of circumstance. Or, I meet tomorrow as one who is cherished. This does not command one person to perform. It establishes the identity from which you no longer use another's uncertainty to condemn yourself. Choose the identity rather than the script. Fear writes scripts because it does not trust states. It wishes to know every word, every expression, every time, every result. But a state is larger than one script. Being respected may express through another person speaking differently, through your own boundary, through leaving an old arrangement, or through entering a new one. Being supported may express through money, wisdom, time, help, opportunity, or the removal of an unnecessary burden. Being loved may express through reconciliation, clarity, tenderness, self-respect, or a new form of companionship. You do not know the bridge, you know the state. Let tomorrow have enough freedom to express the essence through its natural order. This is how you enter it without forcing it. The fearful self enters tomorrow, armed with instructions. This person must say this. That letter must contain this answer. The money must come through this door. The meeting must happen at this hour. The morning must present this sign. She calls this faith, but beneath the instructions is terror that any change in form means the end is lost. The fulfilled self does not need such narrow supervision. She knows the essence. She can allow the bridge. If one meeting changes, the destination remains. If one person is uncertain, being cherished remains a state larger than that uncertainty. If one channel closes, support is not extinguished. If one morning does not contain visible evidence, the law has not ceased. This breadth produces calm. Calm is the emotional atmosphere of a future no longer held hostage to one event. Perhaps you have imagined that to make tomorrow obey you, you must give it detailed orders. But the deepest command is not directed toward tomorrow's people and incidents. It is directed toward identity. I will not enter tomorrow as the rejected one. I will not enter tomorrow as the condemned one. I will not enter tomorrow as the one for whom no answer exists. I will not enter tomorrow rehearsing conflict. This is an inward decree. Then another identity is selected. I enter as one whose worth is established. I enter as one who remains open to support. I enter as one capable of receiving a favorable turn. I enter as one who does not need to know every step before resting. You are not forcing the day. You are refusing to surrender the self with which you meet it. The day will contain events. Some may be pleasant. Some may require patience, courage, or practical action. The state does not guarantee that every hour will flatter you. It determines the inner position from which each hour is interpreted and met. This matters more than you may realize. Two people may receive the same delay. One says, "This proves nothing works for me." The other says, "This is an unfinished interval. I will take the next wise step." The outward fact is similar. The inner tomorrow is entirely different. One enters a state of defeat. The other remains in movement. Two people may receive the same criticism. One becomes worthless. The other examines what is useful, discards what is not, and remains whole. The words are similar. The experienced world differs. Two people may see the same financial figure. One enters impending ruin. The other recognizes a present matter and remains open to means, judgment, and opportunity. The figure is similar. The future enacted from it changes through state. This is not an argument that attitude alone instantly changes every material fact. It is an understanding that state is never irrelevant. It influences perception, action, relationship, endurance, and the natural incidents through which circumstances move. And within the law of assumption, state is more than an influence. It is the psychological reality from which your world is experienced and toward which corresponding forms are drawn. Therefore, choose the state before the day arrives. Do not wait for morning to impose one. Morning itself has no mind. The light does not enter the room carrying rejection. The clock does not strike an hour of scarcity. The floor beneath your feet does not declare conflict. You awaken, and the state awakens with you. The thought returns. The body remembers. The identity through which you slept rises to interpret the day. This is why tomorrow does not begin with morning. Morning reveals the state carried across the night. The person who falls asleep in unresolved argument may awaken in the argument before remembering the room. The eyes open, and the first inner voice continues the speech begun hours before. The person who falls asleep expecting a financial threat may awaken and immediately feel the future pressing upon the chest. The person who falls asleep in abandonment may reach for proof before the body has fully awakened. The state was waiting. The morning merely gave it another field in which to express itself. But the same is true of a chosen state. A woman falls asleep with the simple feeling that the matter is no longer beyond all order. She does not force certainty. She rests in openness. In the morning, the first thought may still be the old concern, but it does not grip with the same total authority. There is space. Within that space, she remembers that another interpretation exists. A different action becomes possible. She may not call this a miracle, yet the day has begun differently, because consciousness entered it differently. Another woman falls asleep in the quiet implication that she is cherished. She does not watch a particular person in imagination all night. She simply ceases using silence as evidence against herself. In the morning, she is less compelled to pursue reassurance. Her words change. Her posture changes. Her perception of the relationship changes. The old role loses one of its actors. Again, a sequence begins. Another falls asleep feeling supported despite an unanswered financial matter. In the morning, the figure remains, but panic no longer occupies the entire field. She remembers a practical step. She asks a clearer question. She notices a possibility previously hidden beneath fear. The visible answer may arrive later, but tomorrow has already obeyed the changed identity by presenting itself to another self. Do not overlook this first obedience. You may imagine obedience only as the world changing before you change. But the first lawful movement may be that you no longer meet the world as its former servant. The circumstance stands before you. You do not kneel. The silence remains. You do not translate it immediately into abandonment. The delay continues. You do not make it your destiny. The figure appears. You do not allow it to name the whole future. This is authority becoming embodied. From there, outer change can be met, recognized, and received. If you demand only spectacle, you may miss the inward shift from which spectacle becomes natural. Honor the quieter beginning. Tomorrow may first obey you by failing to awaken the same fear. A person may say the same words, but you do not hear them through the old wound. An obligation may remain, but it no longer occupies every room of consciousness. A plan may change, but you do not abandon the shore. The day may be imperfect, but it does not become an enemy. This is freedom in advance of complete evidence. You have stopped giving tomorrow permission to rule from the outside. The identity has been selected within. Yet do not turn this teaching into another burden. You may now think, I must enter completion perfectly tonight, or tomorrow will punish me. No. That thought is fear finding a new language. The law is not a judge waiting to condemn one imperfect night. You are learning direction, not performing an examination. If the old anticipation returns, notice it. You have entered tomorrow again. Return to the room. That is all. You do not have to fight the future you imagined. Simply recognize that you are imagining it. The conversation is not occurring now. The letter is not being opened now. The decision is not being announced now. The feared figure is not multiplying in this room. The body is here. The future is there. Return. This return breaks the trance of anticipation. Then select one simple implication of completion, perhaps not even a sentence. The feeling of lying here after the matter has been settled. No image required, only the absence of the need to travel forward. What would you no longer be doing? You would not be rehearsing. Stop for 1 minute. You would not be checking the imagined face of another. Let the face fade. You would not be calculating every future consequence. Let the figures remain outside. You would not be holding the breath for an answer. Allow it to leave. These absences form the emotional shape of completion. The fulfilled state may arrive as subtraction. No more inner trial. No more prediction. No more rehearsed refusal. No more carrying mourning. This is enough to distinguish completion from fear. Fear is active. It produces, it speaks, it arranges, it warns. Completion is often quiet because the question is no longer generating labor. Rest in the absence of labor. You do not need to add brilliant declarations to a mind already tired from producing unwanted scenes. Let the production cease. A stage can become sacred when the old actors leave. The curtain falls upon the imagined argument. The financial tragedy is not performed. The scene of rejection ends before the other person enters. Tomorrow's disappointment loses its audience. The stage remains empty. Do not fear the emptiness. It is the space in which another state can be accepted. Perhaps the new scene is extremely brief. You see morning light. You feel the body rested. You hear yourself say, "I feel so much lighter." That may imply everything necessary. You do not specify which letter arrived, which person spoke, or which door opened. The feeling of being lighter contains the emotional aftermath. Or you imagine placing your feet upon the floor and feeling that life is orderly. You do not know what order looks like yet. You feel its presence, or you hear a trusted voice say, "You handled everything beautifully." This may imply guidance, dignity, and resolution. Choose a scene broad enough to carry the state and simple enough to enter without effort. But if even this feels like work, use only a phrase. Tomorrow meets me from a better state. Perhaps alter it. I meet tomorrow from a better state. This phrase places authority where it belongs. You are not demanding that every event be pleasant. You are selecting the self who meets the event. I meet tomorrow from a better state. Less fear, more openness, less prediction, more presence, less self-condemnation, more dignity, less dependence upon signs, more loyalty to the selected end. Let the phrase mean only as much as the body can accept. No need to make it magnificent. A better state is enough. You may move from terror to neutrality. That is better. From certainty of failure to openness. That is better. From rehearsing conflict to leaving the conversation unspoken. That is better. From financial catastrophe to one present practical matter. That is better. The bridge does not require a leap when a turn will change direction. Make the turn. The clock calls the next day tomorrow. Consciousness calls this turn a present relocation. You have not changed the date. You have changed the state from which the date will be entered. This is the hidden work of night. The world sees a woman lying quietly. It does not see the former future being abandoned. It does not see the identity being changed. It does not see rejection losing its rehearsed scene. It does not see scarcity being deprived of tomorrow. It does not see the inner conversation ending. Yet these invisible movements have consequence. The world is built not only from outward acts, but from the states that select, interpret, and animate those acts. A person who awakens inwardly supported writes a different letter than one who awakens condemned. She hears a different meaning in another's words. She notices a different possibility. She tolerates different treatment. She chooses different timing. Her state enters the day through countless ordinary decisions. Then the ordinary decisions become part of the bridge. Do not separate spiritual assumption from practical life. The state does not replace action. It gives action its origin. Fear may tell you to act too quickly. Completion may reveal that no action is needed yet. Fear may tell you to remain silent, because rejection is expected. Dignity may reveal that a clear word is natural. Fear may tell you to accept any financial arrangement, because no other support exists. Security may help you examine the matter more wisely. Fear may tell you to cling to one form of opportunity. Guidance may allow another door to be recognized. The action expresses the state. Thus, entering tomorrow from completion does not mean lying still while neglecting what life requires. It means meeting requirement without first becoming the feared result. You can answer the letter without becoming condemned. You can attend the meeting without becoming rejected before it begins. You can consider the figures without becoming ruin. You can hold the conversation without rehearsing defeat. You can act in tomorrow while living from an end larger than the present action. The end in essence remains selected. Perhaps the conversation concerns love. The end is not merely obtaining one sentence. The end is being cherished, respected, and at peace. Speak from that. Perhaps the matter concerns money. The end is not merely moving one figure. The end is support, sufficiency, freedom, and wise participation in life. Act from that. Perhaps the matter concerns purpose. The end is not merely one position or title. The end is meaningful contribution, recognition, usefulness, and reward. Move from that. When the essence is clear, one incident loses the power to define everything. This is why completion produces calm. You are no longer asking the middle to contain the whole end. A delayed reply is one incident. It is not the totality of being loved. An expense is one incident. It is not the totality of supply. A difficult meeting is one incident. It is not the totality of your purpose. A tense morning is one incident. It is not the totality of peace. Enter tomorrow knowing the difference between an incident and an identity. The incident may move. The identity is selected. If the incident contradicts the state, treat it as unfinished. Do not force it to agree immediately. Do not attack it. Do not let it change your address. You may say, "This is one moment in the bridge. It does not decide the state I occupy." Then respond wisely. This is how tomorrow obeys without becoming a stage upon which you control every actor. It obeys the inner order. It receives the identity. It presents circumstances to a consciousness prepared to interpret and meet them according to that state. And through the mysterious correspondence of the law, the field of experience begins to organize itself around what has become natural. You may not see the organization in one day. Do not make the morning a test. If you awaken and immediately inspect every circumstance, you return to the state of one waiting for proof. Let morning be ordinary. Rise, breathe, attend to what is before you. Remember the state when memory is needed. You do not have to walk through the day repeating, "Tomorrow obeys me." True authority is quieter. The state reveals itself in how little you need to force. Perhaps no visible answer comes by noon. You do not pronounce defeat. Perhaps another person remains uncertain. You do not make uncertainty your identity. Perhaps a practical difficulty appears. You respond without claiming that the whole day has turned against you. This steadiness is not a lack of result. It is the cause becoming more stable. The outer world has often changed slowly because the inner state changed back each time appearance contradicted it. Tonight you select support. Morning presents an old report. You return to fear. The old report receives new life. Then you say, "Assumption does not work." But you used assumption continuously. You assumed the old report had authority. You assumed contradiction meant failure. You assumed the first appearance contained the final meaning. Now you are learning persistence of another kind, not repeating words through clenched teeth. Remaining loyal to the selected identity while incidents remain unfinished. This is the true discipline of tomorrow. You do not demand that every hour obey the exact picture of reason. You refuse to let any hour command you back into the old self without awareness. If you wander, return. If you react, return. If the old anticipation begins tomorrow night, return. The state is not destroyed by temporary movement. A home remains home even when the traveler leaves for an hour. Remember the address, completion, not perfect circumstance, completion as the inward end. The matter no longer determines who I am. The desired essence belongs to me in consciousness. The bridge may move. I do not need to supervise it through fear. This is enough. Perhaps the body wishes to sleep now, but the mind is still traveling ahead. Call it back gently, not by force. Say, "Morning does not need me yet." Let that become a boundary. Morning does not need me yet. The conversation does not need your rehearsal. The account does not need your midnight attention. The decision does not need your imaginary verdict. The person does not need your fear entering their mind. Morning does not need you yet. Night needs only your surrender of false responsibility. The body is here to rest. The imagination is here to receive another state. The future can remain beyond the door. You will meet it when the door opens naturally. Until then, you do not need to visit. Perhaps use the image of a sealed room. Tomorrow is a room not yet opened. You have been placing your ear against the door. attempting to hear what waits within. You imagine footsteps, voices, judgments, numbers, but the sounds are created by the mind. Step away from the door. You do not have to know what every room contains before entering it. Carry the selected identity with you. When the door opens, you enter as one who is guided. The room does not determine your whole being. You bring the state. This is the essential truth. The future is not merely a place you enter. It is also a place entered by the identity you carry. You have been afraid of tomorrow, as though it alone were approaching you. But you are also approaching it. Who is approaching? That question matters. The abandoned self, the threatened self, the exhausted self trying to control every possibility, or the self who knows that one unseen day contains more possibility than today's last report. You may choose, perhaps not completely tonight. Choose direction. The one approaching tomorrow is less willing to condemn herself. The one approaching tomorrow leaves more room for favorable movement. The one approaching tomorrow does not make every delay a refusal. The one approaching tomorrow is learning to be supported. Let this be enough identity for one night. You do not need to become a grand version of yourself before sleep. You need only cease becoming the feared version in imagination. Stop adding detail to her. Stop giving her tomorrow's face. Stop rehearsing her words. Let her fade. The self of completion may not yet possess a clear face. That is all right. Feel her absence of fear. Feel how she does not lean forward into the morning. Feel how she can remain upon the pillow. Feel how she does not need to know. Perhaps she says only, tomorrow will meet me when it comes. There is calm in this. Tomorrow will meet me when it comes. And I will meet tomorrow from the state I choose now. No haste, no prediction, no premature suffering. The clock may continue its movement. You do not need to follow every minute toward morning. Time can pass without being watched. The future can approach without being interrogated. The body can sleep without losing the ability to respond. Let the night become spacious. Tomorrow exists upon the clock. Completion exists in consciousness. You are choosing consciousness. The clock may say, not yet. Consciousness may say, already accepted in essence. The clock may say, the conversation has not occurred. Consciousness may rest in the identity that no longer fears the conversation. The clock may say, the answer has not come. Consciousness may rest in the relief that no longer depends upon constant waiting. The clock may say, the money is not visible. Consciousness may rest in support while remaining open to practical means. The clock measures sequence. Consciousness chooses state. Do not confuse their offices. You are not denying sequence. You are selecting the state carried through sequence. That state may change how long certain patterns continue, how you respond to them, and what roads become available. But you do not need to calculate this tonight. Let the teaching become simple again. Anticipation is imagination extended forward. You have been entering tomorrow before morning. You may continue doing so unconsciously through fear, or you may enter it consciously through the emotional consequence of fulfillment. The feared future has never required physical evidence before you felt it. Neither does the state of completion. Begin small. Relief before the answer. Dignity before the conversation. Support before the visible means. Peace before the decision. Openness before the path. These are not rewards stolen from tomorrow. They are seeds given to it. Let one seed remain. No need for many. Perhaps relief. What would relief stop doing? It would stop asking. For 1 minute, stop asking. Perhaps dignity. What would dignity stop doing? It would stop begging the imagined judge. For 1 minute, leave the court. Perhaps support. What would support stop doing? It would stop treating one figure as the whole future. For 1 minute, let the figure become one present fact. The seed is planted through implication. You do not have to shout the word. You feel the natural consequence. Then let sleep cover it. The seed does not need your conscious eyes upon it. Darkness is not abandonment. It is part of germination. The mind may lose the phrase. The state may remain. You may awaken briefly. No need to begin again with effort. Remember only that tomorrow has not yet become your enemy. Return to the body. Return to the night. You do not have to visit morning yet. Eventually morning will arrive without your assistance, and when it does, the clock will call it tomorrow, fulfilled into today. But consciousness will meet it as the state you have practiced now. Therefore, do not ask only what tomorrow will bring. Ask what self you are bringing into tomorrow. Then choose gently. Bring less fear. Bring less prophecy. Bring less dependence upon one sign. Bring more room. Bring the willingness to be supported. Bring the memory of the end. Bring the knowledge that one event cannot define the whole. You do not need to pack the entire future, only the state. The traveler carries a small lamp, not the whole road. Let your state be the lamp. It need not illuminate every mile. It reveals the next step when the step appears. You may sleep without seeing beyond it. The clock calls the unseen hour tomorrow. Consciousness calls it an open field, receiving the identity you occupy now. Enter no farther through fear. You have already traveled enough tonight. Return to the room. Return to the support beneath you. Let tomorrow remain beyond the threshold until morning opens it. And when it opens, do not enter as the one who has already lived through rejection, scarcity, conflict, delay, and disappointment. Enter as one who has rested after selecting another end. The future does not need to be conquered. It needs to be met from the state of completion rather than the state of fear. Tomorrow does not begin when your eyes open. It begins in the identity to which you give emotional reality now. Tomorrow does not begin when your eyes open. It begins in the identity to which you give emotional reality now. And yet, because you have heard that the moments before sleep are creative, you may have become anxious about those moments. You may have begun to treat the final thought of the night as though it were a verdict from which there can be no appeal. You repeat a beautiful sentence, then an unwanted thought appears, and you fear that the unwanted thought has taken possession of the night. You feel relief for a moment, then remember the letter, the silence, the obligation, or the uncertain conversation, and you say, I have ruined the impression. You have not ruined it. Sleep does not mechanically reward the final sentence spoken before unconsciousness. It does not stand beside the bed counting words, accepting one phrase and rejecting another, according to which happened to be last. Sleep deepens the state in which consciousness comes to rest. Therefore, the important question is not, what exact words did I repeat last? The important question is, where did I finally come to rest? Did you come to rest as one waiting for permission from the world? Did you come to rest as one rejected? Did you come to rest as one threatened by tomorrow? Did you come to rest as one who believed the whole burden remained upon her shoulders? Or did you come to rest as one who, despite passing thoughts and imperfect emotion, had inwardly selected another end? This distinction should release you from the tyranny of the final thought. A thought is a movement. A state is a dwelling place. A thought may pass through the room. A state is the room in which you remain. You may think of the feared event for one moment without making fear your resting place. You may remember the unanswered question without returning fully to the identity of the one who has no answer. You may feel the body tighten and still choose not to make tension the final meaning of the night. The last governing mood matters more than the last isolated fragment. A leaf may fall upon the river, but the river's direction is not determined by the leaf. A cloud may pass before the moon, but the moon has not changed its course. One thought may cross awareness, while the deeper movement remains toward relief, trust, dignity, or completion. Do not give one passing thought a power greater than the state you are learning to occupy. You have sometimes awakened in the night and remembered something unpleasant. The thought appeared suddenly, before you had time to choose. Then fear said, this must be the true state because it came without effort. But automatic does not mean ultimate. It means familiar. The old state has been practiced, and therefore its thoughts may arrive quickly. A well-traveled road is easier to enter than one recently discovered. This does not make it the only road. You may notice where you are and turn. No condemnation, no alarm, no belief that the whole night has been lost. Simply turn. I do not need a perfect thought. I need a chosen resting place. Let this sentence free you from mental strain. I do not need a perfect thought. I do not need to keep the mind motionless. I do not need to prevent every memory. I do not need to force the body into complete serenity. I do not need to hold one imaginal picture without interruption until sleep overtakes me. I need a chosen resting place. A resting place is not a single word. It is the identity to which you return when thought has finished wandering. Perhaps you walk through several rooms before sleep. You enter concern. You leave it, you enter memory. You leave it, you enter a brief image of fulfillment. You lose it. You think of tomorrow again. Then, after all this movement, you finally settle into the quiet recognition that nothing more is required of you tonight. That recognition is the resting place. The mind may still produce a faint thought after it. The thought does not necessarily remove you from the state. It may be like the final sound heard from the street after the house has become quiet. You hear it, but you remain at home. Do not leap from the bed inwardly to chase every sound. Let thoughts pass outside the chosen chamber. Suppose your chosen resting place is being cherished. You may still remember the silence of another person. The silence appears as a thought, but beneath it, you no longer agree that silence defines you. You remain cherished in identity. The thought has not become residence. Suppose your resting place is support. You may remember a figure upon a page. The figure appears. Yet beneath it, you refuse the conclusion that no answer exists and every road is closed. You remain available to support. Suppose your resting place is guidance. You may think of an uncertain decision, but you no longer insist that uncertainty means abandonment by life. You remain one who can be led. The passing thought is allowed. The governing state remains. This is a far more humane practice than the fearful effort to control every movement of mind. You are not trying to become a statue before sleep. You are selecting the house in which a living mind may rest. A house can contain movement. A board may creak. The wind may touch a window. A visitor may cross one room. Still, the house remains the house. So too, a state can contain passing emotion without surrendering identity. You may feel sadness while resting as one worthy of love. You may feel concern while resting as one whose life contains support. You may feel uncertainty while resting as one guided beyond present sight. You may feel fatigue while resting as one whose burden is no longer carried alone. The state is not proven by the absence of all human feeling. It is known by the meaning to which you finally consent. What meaning are you carrying beneath the feeling? Sadness may say, something mattered to me. It does not have to say, love has abandoned me forever. Concern may say, there is a matter requiring attention. It does not have to say, no answer exists. Uncertainty may say, I cannot see the bridge. It does not have to say, there is no bridge. Fatigue may say, I have carried much today. It does not have to say, I must carry everything tomorrow. The feeling can remain while the conclusion changes. When the conclusion changes, the resting place changes. You may cry and still rest in love. You may tremble and still rest in openness. You may be disappointed and still rest in the knowledge that one event does not decide the whole future. This is why I do not ask you to manufacture a final emotion of triumph. Triumph may keep the mind awake. Excitement may stimulate the body. A sleep practice should not become a performance. The state akin to sleep is approached through release, not through violent enthusiasm. What would you feel after the desired matter had become natural? Perhaps not excitement, perhaps no strong emotion at all. Perhaps you would simply stop thinking about it. There would be no need to inspect the person's face, no need to calculate every possibility, no need to rehearse tomorrow's conversation, no need to imagine what happens if the answer is unfavorable. The question would have lost its urgency. This absence of urgency may be the truest emotional signature of fulfillment available tonight. Rest there. You do not have to see the miracle. You may feel only the end of waiting. You do not have to imagine every detail of financial improvement. You may feel only that the future no longer sits heavily in the body. You do not have to hear another person speak a long declaration of affection. You may feel only that you are no longer asking inwardly whether you matter. You do not have to picture every step of a successful day. You may feel that tomorrow is no longer approaching as a judge. These subtle changes of relation form a state. A governing mood is not always a strong feeling. It may be a quiet assumption concerning what kind of world you inhabit and who you are within it. The threatened person lies in a world that may strike at any moment. The supported person lies in a world where answers may arise through ways not yet visible. The rejected person lies in a world where love must be earned, chased, or defended. The cherished person lies in a world where affection is natural, and where another's temporary state does not erase her worth. The condemned person lies in a world where today's error becomes tomorrow's identity. The forgiven person lies in a world where the past can be revised, learned from, and left behind. Which world feels like your final residence tonight? Do not answer by examining whether every thought agrees. Ask where the deeper emotional weight rests. Does it rest upon the problem? Or has some of the weight moved into the end? Even a small movement matters. You may still think of the problem, but perhaps you no longer feel that you must solve it in this hour. That is movement. You may still care whether the person responds, but perhaps you no longer feel that your worth will be created by the response. That is movement. You may still have a financial obligation, but perhaps you are no longer living through every possible consequence before morning. That is movement. You may still be uncertain, but perhaps the future feels open rather than condemned. That is movement. A chosen resting place does not require the complete disappearance of the old state. It requires that you cease making the old state the only available home. You are moving. Let movement be enough. Many people approach sleep as though they must cross a vast distance in a single leap. They lie down afraid and demand that they become perfectly certain before the eyes close. When certainty does not arrive, they become more afraid. Now the fear concerns not only tomorrow, but their failure to assume correctly. They say, I must feel it done. I must feel it done. Why do I not feel it done? The phrase becomes a whip. The body tightens beneath the command. This is not the state of completion. It is the state of one who believes completion depends upon emotional performance. Release the performance. You are not being examined. The subconscious does not demand a theatrical demonstration. It receives what is made natural through acceptance. Naturalness can begin very modestly. Perhaps you cannot feel. Everything is fully resolved. Can you feel, I am finished with this matter for tonight? That is a resting place. Perhaps you cannot feel, I am completely secure. Can you feel, I am safe enough to let one breath leave without holding it? That is a resting place. Perhaps you cannot feel, I am deeply loved. Can you feel, I will not use another person's silence to attack myself during this hour? That is a resting place. Perhaps you cannot feel, tomorrow will be wonderful. Can you feel, tomorrow is not yet decided against me? That is a resting place. Begin where the whole being can say yes. A small true yes is more useful than a magnificent sentence spoken against the whole body. You may enter a larger state through a series of gentle agreements. The mind says, I cannot be certain. You answer, certainty is not required for rest. The body says, I still feel tension. You answer, tension may be present without deciding tomorrow. Memory says, this happened before. You answer, repetition is not inevitable merely because it is familiar. Fear says, you may be disappointed. You answer, I do not need to live through disappointment tonight. Each response moves you toward another room. Eventually the argument loses energy, not because every objection has been defeated, but because you no longer believe every objection deserves an answer. This is how the governing mood changes. The mind was formerly governed by the question, what if the worst happens? Now another question begins to govern. What if the end is more secure than the present appearance suggests? Do not answer this with a list of proofs. Let the question open a door. What if the end is more secure than the present appearance suggests? What if the silence is only an interval? What if the figure is only one present report? What if the changed plan belongs to a bridge you cannot yet understand? What if tomorrow contains a movement that today could not display? The purpose of the question is not to persuade reason with certainty. It loosens fear's claim to exclusive knowledge. Fear has been allowed to speak as though it alone knows the future. It says, because no movement is visible, nothing is moving. Because no answer has come, no answer will come. Because the old pattern appeared again, The old pattern must continue, but fear has not been to tomorrow, it is imagining. When you recognize this, you no longer bow to every fearful thought as though it were revelation. It becomes one possibility imagined from one state. You are free to choose another state, and the state you choose before sleep is not judged by the last accidental image. It is known by the place to which you willingly return. Return is the secret. You may wander 10 times. Return 11, not anxiously. Not as though each wandering destroyed the work. Return as one comes home after walking through the evening. The home did not disappear while you were away. Perhaps your phrase is, I do not need a perfect thought. I need a chosen resting place. Use it whenever the mind begins fearing itself. I do not need a perfect thought. The mind may remember. The body may react. A question may rise. A sound may interrupt. I need a chosen resting place. Where do I rest? In the end. Not necessarily in the visible scene. In the emotional truth implied by the end. Relief, support, belonging, dignity, guidance, completion. Select one. Do not attempt to rest in 5 states at once. The fulfilled life may contain all of them, but the body may need one doorway tonight. Perhaps relief is the doorway through which support, love, and guidance become implied. If the matter were resolved, you would feel relief. Let relief become the bed beneath the mind. Perhaps dignity is the doorway. If you knew your worth did not depend upon the answer, you would not plead inwardly. Let dignity become the pillow. Perhaps being held is the doorway. If you felt held by life, you would not carry every possible future alone. Let being held become the room. Use imagery only where it serves naturalness. You do not need to create a bright picture. You may feel the bed as evidence of support. You are physically being held. Let this fact become an inward symbol. The body does not have to hold itself above the mattress. It releases weight. The mattress receives it. What if consciousness could release tomorrow in the same manner? You do not have to hold the future above you. Let it descend into the deeper order of the law. You have selected the state. Now allow the state to hold you. This is different from attempting to hold the state. The anxious mind says, I must keep this feeling. I must not lose it. I must stay awake long enough to impress it. But the fulfilled state does not feel like an object that may escape if your grip weakens. It feels like support. You rest upon it. You do not hold the bed holds you. Let the state become the bed. If a thought of fear passes, it passes across a supported body. The support remains. If a memory appears, it appears within a larger room. The room remains. If you drift from the imaginal scene, the essence does not vanish. The scene was only a doorway. The state is the chamber. Do not keep returning to the doorway to ask whether you entered correctly. You are here. Rest. Perhaps you chose an imaginal scene in which a trusted friend congratulates you. You hear the words and feel relief. Then the scene fades. Do not reconstruct every detail. You do not need to remember the friend's exact expression, the sound of the room, or the position of every object. What did the scene imply? It implied that the matter had been resolved. Rest in the implication. The image may disappear. The implication remains as mood. Perhaps you imagined holding a letter containing the desired answer. You felt the paper and read one line. Then another thought entered. Do not panic. The creative value was not hidden in perfect visual continuity. It was in the acceptance, however brief, that the answer belonged to you. Return to the feeling of having read good news. No need to recreate the entire letter. Perhaps you imagined awakening tomorrow with peace. Then you remembered the problem. The remembered problem does not cancel the peaceful morning. Recognize it as an old visitor. Return to the mood of a morning no longer burdened by anticipation. You do not need a perfect thought. You need a chosen resting place. This teaching protects you from the superstition that the law is easily offended. The law is not a temperamental power seeking to punish one mental mistake. It is the relationship between consciousness and experience. States repeatedly occupied become familiar. What becomes familiar is expressed through perception, conduct, expectation, and the visible arrangement of life. One intrusive thought does not possess more creative authority than the identity to which you repeatedly consent. If you spend the evening returning to support, one brief image of difficulty need not become the ruler. If you return to being cherished, one moment of loneliness need not become the final state. If you return to completion, one question of timing need not destroy the end. The deeper tendency matters. Where is the river flowing? The surface may turn in small circles around a stone. The leaves upon the water may appear to move backward for a moment. Yet the river continues toward the sea. Let your chosen state be the deeper current. Thoughts may circle. The current remains. Do not judge direction from every leaf. Feel the deeper movement. Perhaps the deeper movement is simply away from self-punishment. That is enough. You have spent nights believing that one worried thought makes you responsible for every feared event. This belief has created fear of thought itself. Then the mind cannot rest because it must remain alert against its own movements. Release this burden. You are not required to watch every mental door. You are awareness capable of selecting what receives loyalty. A thought may knock. You do not have to invite it to remain, nor do you need to stand at the door shouting for it to leave. You may hear it and continue settling into the chosen room. The feared thought says, "Tomorrow will go badly." You do not argue for an hour. You say, "That is the old forecast." Then return. The memory says, "The pattern always repeats." You say, "Familiarity is not destiny." Then return. The body says, "I am not yet calm." You say, "Calmness is not required before I am permitted to rest." Then return. Return does not have to be verbal. It may be physical. The shoulders release a little. The eyes stop searching behind closed lids. The tongue rests. The hands become heavier. The breath leaves without being held. Each bodily release may express the state more truly than another sentence. The body speaks assumption through posture. A body braced against tomorrow declares that tomorrow is approaching as danger. A body allowed to rest declares that no immediate battle exists in this room. You may not feel completely safe, but every small release tells the deeper mind that vigilance is no longer the only available identity. This is how a chosen resting place enters flesh, not through command, but through permission. The forehead is permitted to stop calculating. The jaw is permitted to stop preparing an answer. The chest is permitted to stop holding another person's silence. The stomach is permitted to stop receiving tomorrow's imagined news. The hands are permitted to stop grasping the result. These permissions form a mood. The mood says, "The work of this hour is complete." This may be the most powerful state available before sleep. The work of this hour is complete. You do not claim that every outer matter is complete. You claim that no further inward labor is required tonight. The letter may be answered tomorrow. The account may be examined tomorrow. The conversation may occur tomorrow. But the mental trial closes now. The work of this hour is complete. This is the Sabbath in seed form. You have selected the end. You cease adding anxious effort. You do not continue imagining merely because you fear the first act was insufficient. You let the state descend beneath conscious manipulation. A person who plants a seed and then continues pressing it deeper may damage what was already placed correctly. Plant, cover, rest. The darkness of sleep is not absence. It is the field in which the conscious will stop interfering. You need not carry the seed consciously through the whole night. The deeper mind receives the impression. But remember, the impression is not one isolated verbal sound. It is the meaning accepted. You may say, "I am loved." But if beneath the phrase you are asking another person to prove it immediately, the governing mood may still be waiting. You may say, "I am supported." But if the whole body remains devoted to catastrophe, the phrase has not yet become residence. Do not solve this by repeating louder. Go beneath the words. What would being loved allow you to stop doing? Perhaps it would allow you to stop interrogating silence. Stop. What would being supported allow you to stop doing? Perhaps it would allow you to stop calculating all of tomorrow in bed. Stop. What would completion allow you to stop doing? Perhaps it would allow you to stop asking when. Stop. The cessation is the state becoming real. Words may then arise naturally. I am cherished. The phrase no longer pleads. It names the room in which you are resting. I am supported. The phrase no longer attempts to force a channel. It expresses the release of carrying everything alone. It is settled. The phrase no longer orders the world frantically. It closes the inner argument. This is why one quiet sentence may become enough, not because the sentence possesses magical syllables, but because consciousness has ceased dividing itself against the meaning. When the meaning is accepted, silence can complete the prayer. Let silence become part of the imaginal act. Say the phrase once, then do not listen for an answer from the room. Do not examine whether the body changed enough. Let silence receive the words, I am supported. Silence. The silence is not emptiness, it is non-argument. I am cherished. Silence. The silence is not doubt, it is the absence of another plea. The end is selected. Silence. The silence allows the decision to stand. You have been too quick to fill silence with fear. Now let silence become the atmosphere of acceptance. No response is required. The king has issued the decree. The court has closed. The seed is beneath the soil. The house has been entered. Use whichever image allows the mind to stop. Do not pile images upon one another if they stimulate thought. One is enough. Perhaps the house is useful. You walk through the door. The room is quiet. Upon the table is the knowledge that the matter has ended well. You do not read the whole document. You do not ask how it arrived. You sit. That sitting is the state. Then the scene fades. Remain seated inwardly. No need to rebuild the house. Perhaps a chair beneath you becomes the feeling of completion. Or perhaps the river serves better. The current moves beneath the darkness. You do not see the sea. The direction remains. Let sleep be the darkness over the river. Movement continues unseen. Your conscious attention may disappear. The state retains direction. Or perhaps no image is needed. You are simply aware that you do not need to decide anything else. Nothing else tonight. This phrase has great tenderness. Nothing else tonight. No additional proof. No further calculation. No correction of every thought. No demand for complete certainty. Nothing else tonight. The mind may ask one more question. Let the phrase answer without argument. Nothing else tonight. The question can wait. The future can wait. The state has been selected. You are not responsible for waking yourself each hour to renew it. A decree does not expire because the king sleeps. The throne remains the throne in darkness. Likewise, the identity accepted before sleep is not destroyed by the absence of conscious repetition. You may lose awareness of the phrase. That is the purpose of sleep. Let consciousness descend. Do not attempt to remain half awake to supervise the subconscious. Supervision belongs to fear. Acceptance can sleep. The one who possesses does not stay awake counting possession. The one who belongs in a home does not remain at the door reciting the address. She enters and sleeps. Let yourself enter. Perhaps you fear that the old state will return in dreams. Dreams may contain many movements. Do not make them another test. A dream does not necessarily reveal the final governing state. It may be memory, emotion, symbol, or the mind completing impressions. If you awaken from an unpleasant dream, do not pronounce judgment upon the night. The dream is over. Return to the chosen resting place. I do not need a perfect thought. I need a chosen resting place. The dream was movement. The resting place remains available. If necessary, revise the feeling of the dream very simply. Imagine waking from it with relief, knowing that it had no authority. Then return to sleep. Do not analyze it in darkness. Morning may bring perspective, or the dream may need no interpretation at all. The same applies if you awaken with fear. The first thought upon waking during the night may be old and automatic. Do not say, this proves I failed. Say, this is the familiar road. Then turn. The turn may be no more than feeling the pillow and saying, not now. Not now is sometimes sufficient. The conversation is not happening now. The decision is not being announced now. Tomorrow is not asking for action now. Not now. Return to wait. Return to support. Return to the state in which nothing more is required. This repeated return teaches the body a new resting place. At first, the old room may still feel more familiar. You know where every fear is kept. You know the sound of every question. You have lived there for years. The new room may feel unusually quiet. Silence may even seem suspicious. You may ask, should I not be doing something? This is because worry has become associated with responsibility. When worry stops, you fear that you have neglected the desire. But a desire is not sustained by torment. What is selected in consciousness does not require continuous anxiety to remain alive. The end is not a fire that goes out when worry ceases. Worry was smoke, not flame. Let the smoke clear. The end remains. You may care deeply and sleep. You may desire sincerely and release the question. You may remain faithful and stop repeating. The ability to leave the matter alone for a while may be evidence that possession is becoming natural. Absence demands inspection. Possession permits attention to move. If you owned a book upon a shelf, you would not stare at it all night to make certain it remained yours. You could turn off the lamp, leave the room, and sleep. Let the selected state become such quiet possession. You need not stare inwardly. You need not keep the scene before you with strain. The state belongs to you because you have accepted it, not because you remain mentally exhausted in its presence. Perhaps tonight you accept only the possibility of another end. That possibility can be your possession. I no longer believe the feared ending is the only ending. This is enough to change the governing mood from condemnation to openness. Perhaps tomorrow you accept more. Do not despise the beginning. A door opened slightly still allows light to enter. The mind may wish to know how long the new state must be felt before it becomes effective. This question returns you to measurement. Naturalness does not always come by duration. A brief experience may carry profound conviction, while an hour of strained repetition may leave the old identity untouched. The quality of acceptance matters. There have been moments in your life when one sentence changed your state immediately because you believed the speaker. A trusted person said, "Everything has been taken care of," and the body released before seeing evidence. Why? You accepted the meaning. The words were brief. The state changed. Now imagination must become that trusted voice, not a voice of exaggeration, a voice of settled implication. It has been taken care of. Perhaps reason objects, then soften the phrase. There is more order at work than I can presently see. The whole being may accept this. Or, I do not have to carry every part of the solution. Or, the answer does not depend upon my remaining worried. Each phrase loosens false responsibility. When false responsibility is released, the body moves nearer to completion. The chosen resting place becomes accessible. Do not choose phrases because they sound grand. Choose them because they lead toward rest. A phrase that creates argument is not serving the night. A phrase that ends one question is valuable. Perhaps the most suitable phrase is, "I have done enough for today." This may imply that tomorrow's bridge is free to continue, or, "I may leave this in the hands of a deeper order," or, "The end remains mine even while the middle is unseen," or simply, "Rest." One word can become a whole state when joined to meaning. Rest, because no immediate danger is present. Rest, because worry is not the creative power. Rest, because the identity has been selected. Rest, because the law does not require your conscious strain. Let the word carry all of this without analysis. Rest. If another thought appears, it appears within rest. If emotion moves, it moves within rest. If the mind wanders, it wanders from and returns to rest. This is the governing mood. The last governing mood is like the color of light filling a room. Objects may differ. Thoughts may be pleasant or unpleasant. Yet the entire room is held within one atmosphere. Let the atmosphere be trust rather than inspection, not absolute certainty. Trust. Trust that one thought does not destroy the state. Trust that return is available. Trust that the bridge does not require supervision during sleep. Trust that tomorrow contains more movement than the senses can presently report. Trust that identity can remain larger than emotion. This atmosphere may be very quiet. You may not notice a dramatic change. Do not demand one. The body may still be tired. The heart may still be tender. The mind may still hold a little concern. Yet beneath all of it, perhaps there is one settled decision. I will not use this night to condemn tomorrow. That decision can govern. A governing mood is often a decision felt as relation. You no longer relate to tomorrow as a threat. You relate to it as an open field. You no longer relate to the silence as a verdict. You relate to it as an interval. You no longer relate to the figure as destiny. You relate to it as a present fact within a larger life. You no longer relate to the desired end as something begging to be created. You relate to it as the state selected. The objects of thought may remain the same. The relationship changes. This is state. You may think of the same person, but now from dignity instead of abandonment. You may think of the same obligation, but now from support instead of ruin. You may think of the same decision, but now from guidance instead of helplessness. The thought has the same subject. The state gives it another meaning. This is why policing subjects is less important than understanding identity. You do not need to forbid yourself from thinking about money, love, work, or tomorrow. You need to notice who you become while thinking about them. When you think of love, are you the one asking to be chosen, or the one whose worth is already present? When you think of money, are you the one threatened by every figure, or the one capable of receiving ideas, means, and support? When you think of tomorrow, are you the condemned one approaching a judge, or the guided one entering an unfinished field? The subject does not command the state. You select. Before sleep, allow the selected self to become less verbal and more bodily. How does the guided one lie? She may still not know the road, but she does not lean forward into darkness. How does the cherished one breathe? She does not hold the breath waiting for another person's permission. How does the supported one place her hands? They do not grasp every means. How does the relieved one rest her face? The jaw does not prepare tomorrow's defense. Let one physical adjustment express the state, not as a ritual whose correctness must be measured, as a natural gesture. The shoulders lower because tomorrow need not be carried there. The hands open because the end need not be forced. The eyes become still because no sign needs to be found in darkness. The body enters the state before emotion becomes complete. This is enough. You do not need to feel perfect relief. You embody one consequence of relief. You do not need to feel perfect security. You allow one part of the body to stop guarding. You do not need a perfect thought. You need a chosen resting place. Return to this whenever spiritual perfection begins to frighten you. The mind says, "What if my final thought is wrong?" You answer, "The final isolated thought is not my master. I choose the state to which I return. What if I fall asleep before the scene is complete?" The scene exists to imply the state. Sleep may come while implication is present. What if I cannot feel strong emotion? Naturalness may be quieter than emotion. What if fear returns? Fear may visit. It does not own the house. What if I awaken worried? Return. What if I forget every word? Words may disappear. Meaning may remain. What if I do this imperfectly? There is no examination. You are learning residence. The whole teaching may become this gentle answer. Return, not start over. Return, not condemn. Return, not force. Return. The room remains available. Perhaps you have known the feeling of returning home after a long journey. The furniture is familiar. The air feels different from every other place. You do not need to convince yourself that you belong there. Let the new state become such a home through repeated return. At first, it may be a room you visit only briefly. Then you remain a little longer. Eventually, you discover that fear has become the visitor. This reversal does not happen through violence. It happens through familiarity. Each night, you refuse one old conclusion. The new home becomes more familiar. Each time you stop interrogating silence, being cherished becomes more natural. Each time you answer a practical matter without becoming catastrophe, support becomes more natural. Each time you leave tomorrow unvisited, peace becomes more natural. Each time you awaken and return without self-condemnation, trust becomes more natural. The state carried into sleep is being built through these quiet loyalties. Do not look for a dramatic moment when you suddenly become perfect. Notice the direction of home. Where are you returning more often? Perhaps the old state still receives many visits, but it no longer receives unquestioned ownership. This is progress in consciousness. One evening you may feel the shift distinctly. The mind asks its familiar question, and something within no longer wishes to answer. Not because you are tired of the teaching, but because the question has lost authority. You feel no need to produce another scene, no need to seek a sign, no need to argue for the end. You simply know that tonight's work is over. This is Sabbath, rest after acceptance. The state is carried into sleep not by continued labor, but by the cessation of labor from the selected end. You may say once, "It is settled," then no more. The mind may not know how. The phrase does not describe the mechanism, it describes the state. It is settled in consciousness. The outer sequence may remain unfinished. Do not confuse the two. The bridge may still contain letters, conversations, decisions, actions, delays, and redirections. These are movements in form. The state is settled in essence. You rest as one who no longer asks the middle to decide the end. This distinction allows genuine release. It is settled does not mean every person has already performed your conscious wish. It means your identity is no longer waiting for every person to grant it. It is settled does not mean every figure has already changed. It means no figure receives the authority to define all provision. It is settled does not mean every path is visible. It means you remain guided while the path appears. The state is settled. The bridge may move. Let both be true. Then sleep can deepen the state because the conscious mind no longer interferes with endless questions. Perhaps you drift now, while the words continue. You do not need to follow every sentence. The teaching has already given you the essential distinction. A final thought is a fragment. A resting place is a state. You are choosing the state. If a fragment of fear passes, let it pass. The state remains available. If a memory rises, let it rise and fade. The state remains available. If the body is not perfectly calm, let it soften in its own time. The state remains available. You do not need to manufacture the chosen room. You enter through consent. I consent to rest before proof. I consent to leave tomorrow open. I consent to stop using one event to define my identity. I consent to the emotional consequence of completion, even if only as one quieter breath. Consent is enough. The night does not need your strain. The deeper mind does not need your exhaustion. Let the state become more like gravity than effort. You do not force the body downward. You stop holding it up. You do not force the mind into completion. You stop carrying the question. You do not force tomorrow to obey through words. You stop entering it as the one who expects defeat. The selected state becomes natural as unnecessary effort falls away. Perhaps the last governing mood tonight is not joy, but willingness. I am willing to believe tomorrow contains another possibility. This is a chosen resting place. Perhaps it is self-compassion. I will not punish myself for uncertainty. This is a chosen resting place. Perhaps it is release. Nothing more is required of me tonight. This is a chosen resting place. Perhaps it is quiet confidence. The end remains selected. This is a chosen resting place. Choose what feels like somewhere you can sleep, not somewhere you must stand guard. A resting place must support rest. If a phrase makes you feel that you must repeat it endlessly, it has become a task. Set it down. Return to meaning. What meaning would let the body sleep? The matter is not mine to force tonight. The future remains open. I remain whole. There is support beyond my present sight. Tomorrow can meet me differently. One of these may carry you, or none may be needed. Perhaps only the sound of my voice becomes distant, and beneath it you sense that the night is no longer an examination. This is enough. You may fall asleep before deciding upon the perfect phrase. There is no perfect phrase. There is only the state to which language points. Words are fingers indicating the moon. Do not remain staring at the finger. Feel the implication. The burden is lighter. The question is quieter. The future is open. You are no longer standing outside tomorrow's door. You are here. The body is supported. The night is present. The state can be chosen here. Let the last governing mood become one of completion without demand. The end has been selected. Nothing must prove it before sleep. The bridge may continue beyond sight. You are not required to accompany every movement consciously. Rest. And should another thought come after the word rest, let it come. You do not need to make rest the final verbal sound. Rest is the room. The thought is only a visitor. Remain in the room. Perhaps the thought says, what about tomorrow? The room remains. Perhaps it says, what about the person? The room remains. Perhaps it says, what about the money? The room remains. Perhaps it says, what if nothing changes? The room remains. You do not need to answer every visitor. You are home. I do not need a perfect thought. I need a chosen resting place. Let the sentence become slower. I do not need a perfect thought. The mind is allowed to move. I need a chosen resting place. The state is allowed to hold me. I do not need a perfect thought. One fragment does not govern the night. I need a chosen resting place. I return to the end. And what is the end tonight? Perhaps simply this. Tomorrow does not threaten me from beyond the room. I meet it from a state chosen now. I do not carry today as a sentence. I do not use silence as rejection. I do not use one figure as destiny. I do not use uncertainty as proof of failure. I rest in an open future. Let that be enough. No need to improve it. No need to make it more vivid. No need to hold it tightly. The chosen resting place is not secured through tension. It becomes yours through occupancy. Occupy it softly. The bed beneath you, the night around you, the future beyond you, the state within you, everything in its proper place. The body does not belong in tomorrow. Return it to the bed. The mind does not need to stand in the next conversation. Return it to the room. The heart does not need to receive a rejection that has not occurred. Return it to being. I am here. I am supported now. I am allowed to rest now. The end is selected now. The clock may continue toward morning. You do not need to follow it. Let time move without your supervision. Let the state deepen without your effort. Let sleep receive the mood rather than a perfect sequence of words. Let the deeper consciousness carry what the conscious mind can no longer hold. You have chosen the room. Remain there as gently as you can. And when thought fades, do not attempt to call it back. The state does not require continuous speech. Silence may be the deepest agreement. No more asking whether you did it correctly. No more measuring the feeling. No more fearing one imperfect thought. The night is larger than one thought. Awareness is larger than one feeling. The selected state is larger than one passing fragment. Rest in the larger thing. Rest in the direction. Rest in the meaning. Rest in the chosen place. I do not need a perfect thought. I need a chosen resting place. And tonight, I choose to rest where the end has already been accepted. And tonight, I choose to rest where the end has already been accepted. But acceptance must not be confused with restless repetition, for many repeat the language of fulfillment while remaining inwardly devoted to absence. They speak beautiful words, yet beneath every word is a hidden question. They declare that the answer is theirs, then listen anxiously to discover whether the world has heard them. They say that tomorrow will favor them, yet continue looking into tomorrow as one expecting refusal. The words move toward fulfillment. The state remains behind in waiting. A wish says, I hope tomorrow is different. An anxious affirmation says, I must repeat this until tomorrow changes. An assumption says, I have accepted the state from which tomorrow will be met. These three may sometimes use similar language, but they do not arise from the same place. The wish looks toward the desired state as something distant. The anxious affirmation tries to drag that state closer through effort. The assumption enters the state and allows tomorrow to come to it. This is why I do not ask you merely to repeat words. Words are useful when they carry you into another state. They become burdens when you imagine that their number, their volume, or their perfection possesses creative power, apart from the meaning you accept. You may say, tomorrow is working in my favor, 100 times while inwardly asking, is it working yet? You may say, I am cherished, while listening for the silence of one person to contradict you. You may say, I am supported, while feeling that every repetition is another attempt to summon support from a world in which you believe none exists. You may say, the way is open, while staring at one closed door and demanding that it move before you can breathe. The sentence declares one state. The inward posture declares another. The law responds to the posture of being. It is not deceived by language. because consciousness does not respond to words as an external judge might respond to a carefully prepared speech. Consciousness receives the meaning with which the words are clothed. The same sentence may be a petition in one person and a decree in another. One says, "It is settled," hoping the words will make settlement true. Another says, "It is settled," because she has ceased inwardly reopening the matter. The words are the same. The state is different. One stands outside a house repeating its address. The other has entered and placed her weight upon the chair. Assumption is entrance. Wishful repetition is standing at the door, calling the name of a room you do not believe you occupy. Do not condemn yourself if you discover that you have been standing outside. Most people have been taught to use words as instruments of persuasion. They believe they must persuade God, persuade the subconscious, persuade the world, persuade another person, and finally persuade themselves. They repeat because they imagine some resistant power must be overcome. But the creative center is not an enemy refusing your request. It is consciousness accepting the state made real through identification. You do not overpower consciousness. You occupy a state. You do not batter the subconscious with language until it surrenders. You give it an impression. You give consciousness a new emotional residence. This is quieter than struggle, and because it is quieter, the anxious mind often overlooks it. The anxious mind believes power must feel intense. It believes a stronger desire requires a louder declaration, greater emotion, longer repetition, and more mental labor. Yet force often reveals division. One part of the mind says, "I have it." Another says, "No, you do not." The first repeats more loudly. The second resists more strongly. Soon the whole inner world is filled with argument. The phrase intended to create peace becomes evidence that peace has not been accepted. You lie awake repeating, "I am at peace," while the repetition itself prevents peace. You repeat, "Tomorrow will be favorable," while counting how many times you have said it and wondering whether the number is sufficient. You declare, "The answer is mine." Then imagine the absence of the answer between every declaration. This is not assumption, it is negotiation with fear. Assumption does not negotiate endlessly. It decides where consciousness will reside. It may take time for the new residence to feel familiar. You may wander back to the old house. You may hear the old thoughts. But the movement of assumption is always toward occupancy, rather than persuasion. You say, "This is where I choose to live now." Perhaps the new room is called support. Perhaps it is called being cherished. Perhaps it is called dignity. Perhaps it is called favorable movement. Perhaps simply, tomorrow is not against me. You enter. At first, the room may seem unfamiliar. The silence may feel strange, because you have grown accustomed to worry speaking in every corner. You may be tempted to fill the quiet with repeated sentences. Resist nothing, but notice the temptation. Do you truly need another phrase? Or are you afraid that silence means the assumption has disappeared? Silence does not erase the state. Silence may be the state beginning to feel natural. A man who knows where he lives does not repeat his address all night to prevent the house from vanishing. He enters, closes the door, and rests. Let your assumption become an address. You do not have to announce it continually. You know where you have chosen to reside. If you wander into fear, return to the address, but do not stand outside shouting it. Enter. There is a great difference between speaking from a state and speaking toward a state. To speak toward a state is to imagine that the words must carry you across a distance. I shall be secure. I shall be loved. I shall be guided. Tomorrow shall be better. The language reaches forward. It admits the state is not yet yours. To speak from a state is to let the words arise as the natural expression of residence. I am supported. The words do not ask when support will appear. They name the identity from which the present moment is met. I am cherished. The words do not command a particular person to speak. They remove the person from the throne of identity. The end is selected. The words do not explain the bridge. They end the argument over whether the end is allowed. Tomorrow meets me from a better state. The words do not dictate every incident. They establish who will be present when the incidents arrive. This is assumption. It is not a hope shouted into the future. It is a present act of being. Perhaps you say, but I do not yet feel that I am supported. I feel worried. I see no visible evidence. Then do not use the sentence as a weapon against your honest experience. Go beneath it. What would support mean in this very hour? Would it mean that the whole solution does not have to be carried consciously through the night? Can you accept that? Would it mean that one visible channel is not the only channel? Can you leave room for that? Would it mean that fear is not required to keep you responsible? Can you allow one breath without calculation? Now support has become more than a word. It has become a relation to the present. You are entering the state through implication. Or perhaps the phrase is, I am cherished. You say it, but sadness rises because someone remains silent. Do not repeat more loudly. Ask what being cherished would alter in your present treatment of yourself. Would the cherished one use another person's silence to insult herself? Would she spend the whole night proving that she is forgettable? Would she mentally beg an absent figure to grant her worth? Perhaps the first act of being cherished is simply ending that cruelty. You may still miss the person. You may still desire the conversation, but you no longer make longing into evidence against your nature. This is assumption becoming lived. The phrase serves the state. The state does not serve the phrase. Words are vessels. Meaning is the wine. You may polish the vessel endlessly, admire its shape, repeat its inscription, and still drink nothing. Take the meaning. If the words no longer carry meaning, set them aside. Return to the state through another doorway, perhaps through the body, perhaps through an imagined consequence, perhaps through a single inward decision, perhaps through silence. Do not become superstitious about the exact formula. No phrase possesses creative authority merely because another person used it successfully. The phrase succeeded for them because of the state it awakened and the meaning they accepted. The same phrase may awaken argument in you. Choose language that leads inwardly toward acceptance. Do not copy the sound while missing the resonance. Suppose another person says, everything always works in my favor, and the sentence brings her immediate ease. She has joined those words to a state of support. She hears them and feels the burden leave. You repeat the same sentence, but your mind begins listing everything that has not worked in your favor. The words become a summons for contradiction. Do not accuse yourself of failure. Choose another doorway. Perhaps say, I am no longer willing to use one difficult event as proof that life is against me. The whole being may accept this. The statement does not demand excitement. It removes a false conclusion. From there, another state becomes possible. Or say, I do not yet see the full order of this matter. That leaves room. Or, tomorrow contains possibilities today could not display. That may be accepted. Or simply, the future remains open. Assumption is not measured by the grandeur of the sentence. It is measured by the identity it allows you to inhabit. A modest sentence accepted may become a doorway. A magnificent sentence resisted may remain a wall. Enter through the open door. Do not stand admiring the height of another's wall. The purpose is residence. You have sometimes believed that an affirmation must be repeated until the subconscious finally believes it. But consider the state from which this effort begins. You imagine the subconscious as something separate from you, stubbornly refusing your desire. You stand above it as a master giving orders, or beneath it as a petitioner begging for acceptance. Both images create division. Consciousness is not divided into an enemy and a supplicant. The deeper mind receives what the conscious mind repeatedly accepts as natural. Repetition may assist naturalness, but repetition itself is not naturalness. You may repeat a foreign word 1,000 times without understanding it. The sound becomes familiar, but meaning remains absent. Likewise, you may repeat I am secure, while remaining emotionally loyal to danger. The sound becomes familiar. The state does not. The work is not to make the sound familiar. It is to make the identity familiar. How does the secure one interpret delay? How does she meet an obligation? How does she rest while the middle remains unseen? You need not answer with perfect behavior. Begin with one change of relationship. The secure one does not believe that worry creates provision. Therefore, tonight she may stop using worry as labor. This is a living assumption. The cherished one does not believe that one person's silence defines all love. Therefore, she may allow silence to remain an interval rather than a verdict. This is a living assumption. The guided one does not believe that an unseen road is no road. Therefore, she may cease demanding every step before resting. This is a living assumption. The respected one does not believe that dignity must be purchased through endless explanation. Therefore, she may stop arguing with an imaginary judge. This is a living assumption. Notice how the state begins not in spectacular external behavior, but in what you cease doing inwardly. Assumption often appears as subtraction. You stop pleading, you stop inspecting, you stop rehearsing, you stop asking one circumstance to define the whole. You stop using tomorrow as a place where every present fear must be performed. In the space left by these habits, the desired state begins to feel less like a declaration and more like a fact of being. This is why one quiet sentence may carry greater authority than hundreds of anxious declarations. The quiet sentence emerges after the argument has ended. It does not attempt to convince. It expresses the conclusion. Consider the difference between a person repeatedly asking, "Is the door locked? Is the door locked? Is the door locked?" and one who has turned the key and heard the lock settle. The first continues because she is uncertain. The second may say once, "The door is secure." Then she walks away. The authority is not in the number of times the sentence is spoken. It is in the accepted act behind it. Your assumption is such an inward turning of the key. You select the state. You accept the implication. Then you leave the door. If you return to check it 10 times, you reveal that the act has not yet become natural. Do not condemn this. Simply understand what checking means. Checking is not evil. It is evidence that the old state still seeks reassurance. Offer reassurance within, rather than demanding it repeatedly from appearances. You look at the account to discover whether support is real. You look at another person's behavior to discover whether you are cherished. You look at tomorrow's schedule to discover whether life is favorable. You look at your own emotion to discover whether the assumption has worked. Every inspection says, "The truth is outside me, and I must find it." Assumption says, "I have selected the inner truth from which the outside will be met." This does not mean you never look at practical facts. You may read the account, answer the letter, observe another person's conduct, and prepare for an appointment. But you do not inspect these things to discover your identity. The figure may inform action. It does not decide support. The person's conduct may inform a boundary. It does not decide lovability. The schedule may inform preparation. It does not decide whether life can move in your favor. The facts remain in their proper office. Identity remains in consciousness. Anxious affirmation confuses these offices. It repeats inwardly while watching outwardly, hoping the outer world will grant validity to the inner word. Then the inner word remains a request. Assumption removes the request. It says, "This is the state I accept," not, "This is the state I demand the world to permit." You may desire evidence. That is natural. You may rejoice when evidence appears, but evidence is no longer the creator of the state. It is correspondence. The mirror does not create the face. The echo does not create the voice. Tomorrow does not create the identity with which you meet it. The state precedes the experience. Therefore, if you wish to change tomorrow, begin by changing the position from which you await it. Do you await it as one demanding proof, or do you allow it to approach a state already selected? This can be felt in the body. The one demanding proof leans forward. She listens. She searches. She repeats. Her words move outward like hands attempting to pull morning closer. The one who has selected the state settles back. She may still care deeply. She may still prefer a particular result, but she does not believe the night must be filled with force in order to produce it. Her attention can rest. This difference is assumption made physical. Try it gently. Notice whether the body is leaning inwardly toward tomorrow. Perhaps the chest feels as though it is waiting for something to arrive. Perhaps the jaw is prepared for a conversation. Perhaps the hands are holding the means. Let the body move 1 degree backward into support. Not as a technique to force the result, as an expression of no longer chasing the state. You are entering it. The bed is beneath you. Let the bed become evidence of inward support. You do not have to reach for the bed. You release into it. So with assumption. You do not reach for fulfillment. You release into the identity implied by fulfillment. This is the difference between wanting peace and resting as peace. Wanting peace feels the distance. Resting as peace feels the support. The outer matter may remain unfinished, but the inner relation changes. You stop saying, when this is solved, I will allow the body to rest. You begin saying, rest is part of the state from which the solution will be met. This is not wishful thinking. Wishful thinking ignores the relation between present state and future experience. It dreams of a different world while remaining entirely identified with the old self. Assumption changes the self. The wish says, I hope tomorrow brings respect. The assumption says, I no longer enter tomorrow as one who expects to be diminished. The wish says, I hope money comes. The assumption says, I am learning to meet financial life from support, usefulness, and openness, rather than from impending ruin. The wish says, I hope the person returns. The assumption says, I occupy being cherished, and I will no longer use pursuit as the proof of love. The wish says, I hope tomorrow is peaceful. The assumption says, I cease carrying today's argument into tomorrow. The shift is always from hoped-for form to accepted identity. You may still imagine the form. You may see the desired conversation, hold the letter, feel the sum, or hear the good news. But the purpose of the scene is to move you into identity. Once the identity is touched, do not remain at the scene as though the picture itself must be repeated mechanically. The scene is a doorway. The state is the chamber. If you enter the chamber, you need not continue opening and closing the door. Rest inside. Perhaps a brief inner scene gives you the feeling of being remembered with affection. You hear someone say, I was thinking of you. The moment carries warmth. Then the image fades. Do not reconstruct it anxiously. The purpose has been fulfilled if the warmth has become available. Rest as one who is remembered. If the mind later asks whether a particular person is thinking of you, notice that you have left the state and returned to inspection. No shame. Return to being remembered as an identity, rather than asking for evidence from one mind. Or perhaps you imagine a trusted friend congratulating you on financial improvement. The scene gives a sense of relief and stability. Then the conscious mind asks, but where did the money come from? Do not answer. The question concerns the bridge. The state concerns being supported. Remain with the state. When reason demands the means, it often pulls you back into absence because it can see only currently visible channels. Assumption does not deny the need for means. It refuses to make present ignorance of the means evidence that fulfillment is impossible. You may take natural action tomorrow. You may make inquiries, write letters, examine opportunities, or adjust plans, but action does not need to arise from the belief that the state is absent. Action may arise from the state itself. The supported person may feel naturally moved to speak with someone. The guided person may remember an idea. The respected person may set a boundary. The cherished person may stop pursuing and allow relationship to reveal its truth. The state contains tendencies of action. You do not have to invent them all tonight. Let tomorrow express what has become natural. This is another reason anxious repetition is unnecessary. It attempts to do the work of every future action in the present night. It imagines that if the mind stops, the bridge stops. But the bridge is not powered by your continuous verbal effort. The bridge belongs to the correspondence between state and experience. You select. Life arranges. You respond naturally as the incidents appear. You do not need to remain awake giving orders to unseen events. A farmer does not sit beside the field all night repeating instructions to each seed. He prepares the soil. He places the seed. He trusts the order in which life unfolds beneath the surface. He may water the field tomorrow. He may remove weeds. Practical action remains, but he does not believe his sleeplessness makes the seed grow. Let assumption be seed rather than noise above the ground. The sentence is planted when its meaning is accepted. Cover it with rest. Do not dig it up through inspection. Do not ask every hour whether roots have formed. The unseen is doing what the unseen does. Perhaps you say, but I have repeated assumptions before, and nothing appeared. Look gently at the state surrounding the repetition. Were you speaking from possession? Or were you using the words to escape fear while continually returning to fear as home? Did you say, I am supported? Then spend the day interpreting every event through scarcity. Did you say, I am loved? Then measure every silence and call it rejection. Did you say, the way is open, then reject every path that did not resemble the one demanded by reason? Did you use the assumption as residence, or as a brief visit before returning to the old address? There is no accusation here. This understanding returns power. If repetition alone were the law, you would be helpless before the number of words. But the law concerns state, and state can be selected again. You do not have to repay every old repetition. You do not have to undo years sentence by sentence. You change residence. The old address may continue receiving letters for a time. The outer world may still display patterns formed from previous occupancy. But you do not need to move back because the old mail continues arriving. You say, this belongs to the former residence. Then remain where you have chosen. The anxious affirmation sees the old letter and begins shouting the new address. The assumption sees the old letter and understands the delay. No shouting is needed. The address has changed. Let this image settle. The address has changed. People may still speak to the former self. The account may still reflect old patterns. The household may still expect your old role. The body may still remember old vigilance. These are letters directed toward the former residence. You may read them, you may respond practically, but you no longer have to live there. What is your new address tonight? Perhaps the one whose tomorrow is open to favorable movement. Perhaps the one who is supported beyond present sight. Perhaps the one who does not need to force love. Perhaps the one who meets tomorrow with dignity and calm. Name it once if naming is useful. Then feel yourself inside. What does this residence not require? It does not require pleading. It does not require inspection. It does not require perfect emotion. It does not require one particular sign before morning. It does not require 100 repetitions. It requires consent. I consent to live here. This is assumption in its pure form. You do not force yourself to feel every room at once. You enter. The atmosphere may become familiar gradually. The old residence may still call to you. It knows your habits. It knows the questions that bring you back. What if nothing changes? What if the person remains silent? What if the money does not arrive? What if tomorrow resembles today? Each question is an invitation to return to the old address. You do not need to answer them. The answer would only keep you standing at the old door. Say instead, I know where I choose to rest. Then turn. Perhaps the mind calls again. Return again. No battle. Residence is established through repeated return, not through violent rejection of every old thought. This is where repetition may serve you properly. You may repeat one sentence not to force the world, but to remind yourself of the address. The phrase is a signpost. It is not a hammer. Use it when you have wandered. Then stop when you are home. Perhaps the phrase is, tomorrow meets the state I choose tonight. You say it once and remember. Or, I do not enter tomorrow as the old self. Or, the end is selected. The middle is free. Or, I rest where support is natural. The exact words matter less than the inward movement. Do they return you to residence? Then they have served. Do they create another round of anxious checking? Then let them go. Silence may now serve better. The ability to stop is part of assumption. The person who cannot stop repeating has not yet trusted the impression. Do not use this observation to shame yourself. Let it reveal what reassurance is needed. Perhaps the mind fears that without repetition, the old state will win. Tell it gently, I am not abandoning the state by becoming silent. Silence is allowed. Perhaps it fears that sleep will erase the assumption. Tell it, sleep deepens what has been accepted. Perhaps it fears that one unwanted thought will replace the state. Tell it, one visitor does not own the house. Perhaps it fears that tomorrow must be supervised. Tell it, the bridge does not require my vigilance. These assurances are not declarations aimed at the world. They are kindness offered to the part of you that has mistaken strain for power. Let that part rest. It has repeated because it cared. It has searched because it feared loss. It has watched because it wanted to protect you. Do not condemn it. Show it another form of authority. Quiet occupancy. No need to yell at the old self. No need to cast it out. Invite it to sit within the new residence. The frightened part may come too. Support does not require that fear remain outside. The cherished state can contain sadness. The guided state can contain uncertainty. The peaceful state can contain a passing thought. The new house is large enough for your humanity. This makes assumption sustainable. A state that requires emotional perfection cannot become home, because human emotion will always threaten eviction. A true home contains movement. You may have a difficult hour and remain supported. You may miss someone and remain worthy of love. You may feel concern and remain capable of favorable movement. You may encounter contradiction and remain in the selected identity. Assumption is not the claim that no feeling or event can ever disturb you. It is the deeper claim that disturbance does not possess the right to determine residence. This is strength without suppression. Suppose tonight you repeat, tomorrow is favorable, and suddenly remember an unpleasant appointment. The mind says, there, you do not believe. Do not accept that interpretation. You remembered an appointment. That is all. The thought may have carried concern. Let concern be present. Then ask, who meets the appointment? Not the thought itself. You do. Which you? The one condemned before arrival, or the one who enters with dignity, guidance, and openness? Return to the identity. Perhaps the phrase becomes, I meet it from a better state. The appointment remains. The self changes. This is more powerful than attempting to erase the appointment from thought. Or perhaps you say, I am financially secure, and then remember an obligation. You do not need to banish the figure. Ask who meets the obligation. The one for whom this figure is a sentence. Or the one who can examine, respond, seek means, and remain open to support. Return to the identity. The obligation remains one fact. It does not become the whole state. Or you say, I am loved, and remember silence. Ask who experiences the silence. The one whose worth is waiting inside another person's mouth, or the one who can desire communication without abandoning herself. Return to the identity. This is the practical use of assumption. You do not use words to make subjects disappear from consciousness. You change the self related to the subject. The subject may then change through the bridge, but the inward change comes first. The anxious affirmation says, I must make the circumstance disappear so I can become another self. The assumption says, I become another self, and the circumstance is then met within a different order. This reversal removes force. You are not fighting the shadow. You are moving the light. You are not shouting at the echo. You are changing the voice. You are not pushing the image within the mirror. You are changing the face. Each metaphor points toward the same principle. Cause is inward. Effect is outward. Therefore, words aimed angrily at effect miss the creative center. A person may repeat, they respect me, they respect me, they respect me, while inwardly watching another person as the source of respect. She imagines the outer person must change before the state is real. The phrase remains directed toward the mirror. Turn inward. Who are you before the mirror changes? Are you the one whose dignity exists only when recognized? Or can dignity become a state from which recognition, boundaries, choices, and relationships are experienced? Say less, occupy more. I am worthy of consideration. Then stop explaining yourself to the imaginary court. This cessation is the assumption entering life. Another repeats, money comes to me, while feeling that money is an external savior, being called from a distant world. Turn inward. Who are you in relation to value, usefulness, opportunity, receiving, and wise action? Can you become one who expects means rather than one who expects only demands? Can you rest as one receptive to profitable ideas and natural provision? Say less, occupy more. My life contains support. Then stop imagining every unseen channel closed. This openness is the assumption entering life. Another repeats, Love chooses me, while mentally pursuing one person through every silence. Turn inward. Who are you in relation to love? Can you stop treating affection as something begged from an absent judge? Can you permit yourself to be cherished in identity before the visible conversation? Say less, occupy more. Love does not require my self-abandonment. Then release the imaginary pursuit. This release is the assumption entering life. The world responds to the state rather than the volume. The law is not impressed by intensity performed against fear. It reflects the identity accepted beneath the words. This does not mean emotion is useless. Emotion may help clothe an assumption with reality. Joy, relief, gratitude, and tenderness may arise naturally. But do not worship emotion. Strong emotion is not always deep acceptance. A person may feel great excitement about a possibility and still regard it as a possibility outside herself. Another may feel almost no excitement because the end has become ordinary, which is nearer to possession, often the ordinary state. When something belongs naturally to you, you do not remain astonished by it every hour. You use it, you live with it, you allow attention to move. The desired state may first feel exciting because it contrasts with old experience, but as it becomes natural, excitement may soften into quiet knowing. Do not mistake this softening for loss. It may be fulfillment becoming normal in consciousness. You imagine that success would feel like thunder. Perhaps its deepest state feels like the end of asking. You imagined love would feel like constant emotional intensity. Perhaps its deepest state feels like not wondering whether you are lovable. You imagine support would feel like endless relief. Perhaps its deepest state feels like handling life without expecting collapse. You imagine favorable tomorrow as a day filled with spectacle. Perhaps it feels like moving through ordinary events without the old opposition. Assumption makes the extraordinary natural. Wishful repetition keeps it extraordinary, and therefore distant. The wish says, imagine how astonishing it would be if life finally favored me. Assumption says, favorable movement belongs within my experience. The wish marvels from outside. Assumption becomes familiar within. Let favorable movement become less dramatic. Tomorrow may contain a kind conversation, a useful idea, a changed appointment, a simple answer, a small opening, a moment when the old fear fails to arise. Do not reject these because they do not resemble a grand miracle. They may be the state becoming visible through ordinary means. An anxious affirmation demands spectacle because it still doubts the state. Assumption recognizes correspondence. It does not need trumpets. It notices that the world is beginning to meet another self. Perhaps you awaken and the first thought is less fearful. That is correspondence. Perhaps you remember the obligation without immediate catastrophe. That is correspondence. Perhaps another person's silence no longer makes you pursue. That is correspondence. Perhaps you feel moved to take a practical step that did not occur to you before. That is correspondence. The visible world may later change more dramatically, but the first changes often occur in the cause. Honor them. Do not say, nothing happened because the entire outer scene did not transform by morning. The old identity may have lost one degree of naturalness. This is movement. A bridge is not only the final door opening. It includes the inner impulse, the changed perception, the boundary, the conversation, the redirection, and the quiet refusal to repeat an old role. Assumption enters conduct naturally. You do not have to force yourself to act like a caricature of fulfillment. The one who assumes wealth does not need to spend carelessly to prove it. The one who assumes love does not need to tolerate mistreatment to prove she is secure. The one who assumes success does not need to pretend no preparation is necessary. The one who assumes peace does not need to smile through every violation. Such behavior is performance, not state. The fulfilled state is intelligent. It may save, it may prepare, it may say no, it may leave, it may wait, it may act. The difference is the identity from which the action arises. Does the action attempt to purchase the state, or does it express the state? An anxious message attempts to purchase reassurance. A clear message may express dignity. A frantic financial decision attempts to purchase safety. A measured decision may express support and wisdom. Endless explanation attempts to purchase respect. A simple boundary may express it. Assumption changes the quality of action, because action is no longer asked to create identity. Identity precedes action. This is why quiet acceptance carries such authority. There is less contradiction. Thought, feeling, and action begin to gather around one center. Not perfectly, but increasingly. The person who has accepted dignity may still feel fear before setting a boundary, yet dignity determines the final action. The person who has accepted support may still feel concern before examining money, yet concern does not determine the whole conclusion. The person who has accepted being cherished may still miss another, yet longing does not force self-abandonment. The state governs while emotion moves. This is more powerful than 1,000 words spoken without government. A nation is not ruled by the number of speeches delivered. It is ruled by the authority whose decisions become order. Your inner world is similar. Thoughts may speak from many positions. Fear makes a speech. Memory makes a speech. Hope makes a speech. Reason makes a speech. But which state governs? Which one determines the meaning you carry into sleep? Anxious affirmation allows fear to govern, while hope speaks loudly. Assumption changes the government. Fear may still speak, but it no longer issues the decree. The decree is simple. I do not enter tomorrow as the old self. No need for force. The government has changed. The outer provinces may receive the news gradually. The body may still react from former habit. People may still expect the former role. Circumstances may still carry yesterday's seal. But the governing state has changed. Do not run through every province announcing it. Remain at the center. The change will travel according to order. This is the inward meaning of authority. You do not need to persuade every thought. You need to know which thought speaks from the chosen government. When fear says nothing has changed, you may answer once. You are reporting the former state. Then return. When memory says this always happens, answer you are a record, not a command. Then return. When reason says I cannot see the means, answer the means are not the state. Then return. Do not debate endlessly. A debate gives the old state equal standing. You need not prove the new government to the former one. Occupy it. Perhaps the mind continues protesting. Let it protest from the corridor. You are inside. The sentence, it is settled, may help, but say it only if it feels like closure. If it becomes an attempt to silence panic, soften it. I have selected the state. This may feel more honest. Or, I do not need to decide again tonight. This is powerful because it ends inner voting. Or, the matter may remain unfinished outside. My resting place is chosen within. Use the language that allows the debate to close. One quiet sentence accepted may carry more creative authority than hundreds of declarations spoken while inspecting the world. Let us feel the quality of such a sentence. It is not hurried. It does not lean forward. It does not demand immediate proof. It does not continue because silence feels dangerous. It ends. I am supported. Then quiet. The phrase is complete. I am cherished. Then quiet. No imaginary person is summoned to testify. Tomorrow meets me favorably. Then quiet. No inspection of morning. The end is selected. Then quiet. No question of how. This quiet after the sentence is as important as the sentence itself. It reveals whether the mind accepts completion or continues pleading. If silence immediately fills with when, how, who, and where, do not condemn yourself. The state is still becoming familiar. Return to the meaning. Perhaps the sentence was too large. Choose one the mind can leave alone. I do not have to solve this tonight. Say it. Can you leave it alone for one breath? Then it has carried you into a state. Or, tomorrow is not yet decided against me. Say it. Can the future remain open for one breath? Then the state has shifted. Or, one event does not define the whole. Say it. Can the event return to its true size? Then the sentence has creative value. Gradually the language may expand as the state becomes natural. You do not climb by pretending you already stand upon a step the whole being rejects. You place the foot where support is felt. Then rise. The law does not reward exaggeration, it reflects acceptance. This is why honesty and imagination are not enemies. You may honestly acknowledge that fear is present while refusing to make fear your conclusion. You may honestly acknowledge that the answer is not yet visible while accepting support. You may honestly acknowledge that another person is silent while refusing the identity of abandonment. You may honestly acknowledge that a practical difficulty exists while leaving tomorrow open to order. Assumption does not require factual denial. It requires psychological selection. The fact says, this is visible now. The state says, this is who I choose to be in relation to what is visible. The fact may change later. The state changes now. Do not make the mistake of waiting for the fact to change before selecting the state. That is the old order. When the letter changes, then I will feel secure. When the person speaks, then I will feel loved. When the account increases, then I will feel supported. When the decision comes, then I will feel guided. The state remains postponed. Assumption reverses the sequence. I accept security, and therefore I meet the letter differently. I accept being cherished, and therefore I cease using silence against myself. I accept support, and therefore I handle the account without making it my identity. I accept guidance, and therefore uncertainty no longer means I am lost. The outer form follows through its bridge. The state does not wait for permission. This does not mean you must feel complete certainty immediately. Acceptance can begin as willingness. I am willing to stop calling uncertainty failure. I am willing to believe that support may exist beyond present sight. I am willing to let another person's state remain theirs. I am willing to meet tomorrow without rehearsing defeat. Willingness is not weak. It is a door unlocked. Anxious affirmation tries to break the door down. Assumption notices that the door can be opened. Turn the handle. Enter as far as you naturally can. Perhaps tonight you enter only the vestibule of peace. That is still inside. You do not have to reach the deepest room before sleep. The state can deepen over many nights. Do not measure progress through intensity. Measure it, if you must measure at all, through the reduction of inner labor. Are you arguing less, inspecting less, rehearsing less, using fewer words because one sentence is beginning to feel sufficient, recovering more quickly when the old state appears? These are signs that assumption is replacing wish. The wish must continually remind itself that the object is absent. The assumption becomes less occupied with the object because identity has changed. Perhaps you notice that you forgot the concern for an hour. Do not say you abandoned the desire. You may have touched possession. Absence demands constant attention. Possession allows forgetfulness. You do not think about every object you already own throughout the day. You know where it belongs. Let the desired state become similarly quiet. The person who knows she is cherished may spend an afternoon occupied with something else. The person who feels guided may walk without asking for signs at every step. The person who feels supported may consider money without making money the whole of consciousness. The person who has selected a favorable tomorrow may sleep without standing at morning's door. This is the freedom assumption brings before any great outer evidence. You stop living as a petitioner, not because desire has disappeared, because the desired state has been accepted as an inward identity rather than an external favor. Do not confuse petition with prayer. True prayer is the appropriation of the state desired. It is not endless begging. You do not pray as one attempting to persuade an unwilling God. The Father and I are one. The creative consciousness is not outside withholding the state. You enter it, you wear it, you rest in it. The imaginal act is the assumption of being. When you understand this, prayer becomes quieter. You may use few words, perhaps no words. A feeling of being already after the event may be prayer. A sigh of relief may be prayer. An imagined hand upon your shoulder and a voice saying, "It all turned out well," may be prayer. The ending of the inward argument may be the deepest prayer of the night. Do not judge prayer by sound. The most powerful prayer may be the moment you stop asking. The wish says, "Please let tomorrow change." The anxious affirmation says, "Tomorrow must change, because I have repeated these words." The assumption says, I have changed the state from which tomorrow is received. This is enough. Let tomorrow express the state through its natural order. No need to bind every person to your conscious design. No need to dictate every hour. No need to force one road. The state is larger than the route. Select the end in essence: love, support, dignity, guidance, favorable movement, relief. Then allow the bridge to possess intelligence. The anxious mind may object: if I do not specify everything, perhaps I shall receive something I do not want. This objection arises from mistrust of the state, but the state contains its own nature. Being cherished does not naturally express through self-abandonment. Support does not naturally express through endless fear. Dignity does not naturally express through humiliation. Peace does not naturally express through constant inner war. The form corresponding to the state will carry its essence, even if it surprises reason. Trust the essence more than the anxious sketch of the means. You may prefer a particular form. Imagine it if it brings the state naturally. But release the belief that the whole of fulfillment is imprisoned within that one form. A room may have many windows. Light is not limited to the one you are watching. The state is light. The channel is a window. Do not spend the night shouting at one dark window. Turn toward the light within. Let life illuminate the proper opening. This does not mean passivity. Tomorrow may contain a step. You will take it when it becomes natural. Assumption is not inactivity. It is action released from the burden of creating identity. You write the letter as one whose worth is established. You make the inquiry as one open to support. You have the conversation as one who does not expect to disappear within it. You make the financial decision as one guided by wisdom rather than impending catastrophe. The state acts through you. The bridge is not something that happens only outside. Your natural impulses are part of it. But tonight, before sleep, action may not be required. The impulse to do something immediately may be anxiety seeking relief through movement. Ask: does this truly belong to the night? If not, place it in tomorrow. The assumption does not weaken because you postpone unnecessary action. It may strengthen because you cease using action as proof that the state is absent. You may say, I know what must be done tomorrow, and I need not perform it in imagination all night. This is assumption with responsibility. Or, I have taken the step available today. The next step may reveal itself in its proper hour. This is assumption with patience. Or, no present action is possible, therefore worry is not action. This is assumption with clarity. A settled state recognizes timing. Force has no sense of timing because everything feels urgent. Wishful repetition often belongs to urgency. If I say it enough tonight, perhaps morning will be forced to obey. But morning is not an enemy that must be subdued. Tomorrow will be met through the state accepted now. You do not dominate the clock. You select consciousness. Let tomorrow arrive in its own hour. Your work is inward. No need to race the dawn. No need to remain awake until you feel a dramatic shift. The desire is not made more worthy through exhaustion. If the body is ready to sleep, let it sleep. Perhaps the most faithful assumption is the willingness to surrender conscious effort. The seed has been given. The address has been chosen. The key has turned. You may stop. The anxious mind says, one more repetition, then another, then another. Ask what it seeks. Perhaps it wants reassurance. Give reassurance directly. The state is not lost when I become silent. Say this once. Perhaps it fears the subconscious did not hear. Give reassurance. Meaning has been received more deeply than sound. Perhaps it fears the old thought will return. Give reassurance. Return remains available. Perhaps it fears nothing will change. Give reassurance. I do not need to prove the bridge tonight. Then allow silence. The ability to allow silence is a form of trust. In silence, the mind cannot use words as a shield against fear. It must feel the state directly. At first, this may seem vulnerable. Remain gentle. You do not have to endure absolute silence. Let my voice accompany you. But notice that no sentence is being demanded of you. You may listen without repeating. The state may be received through permission rather than effort. You are allowed to stop persuading. You are allowed to stop declaring. You are allowed to stop producing emotion. You are allowed to rest after one quiet decision. What is the decision? Perhaps, I will no longer meet tomorrow as the one who has already been defeated. This is assumption. Or, I accept that the desired essence belongs within my experience. This is assumption. Or, I choose the state and allow the form. This is assumption. Or simply, I rest as one for whom another ending is natural. Choose one if you wish. Do not repeat all of them. Let one become sufficient. One sentence accepted. One doorway entered. One room chosen. One state carried into sleep. The world responds to the state rather than the volume. Therefore, lower the volume inwardly. Let the sentence become almost a whisper. Tomorrow meets me from a better state. Then silence. The end is selected. Then silence. I am supported beyond what I presently see. Then silence. I no longer enter morning as the old self. Then silence. Feel whether the silence contains absence or acceptance. If it contains fear, do not attack it. Add one gentle assurance. I do not need to feel perfect. Then silence. Perhaps the body softens. Perhaps not. No demand. You have still changed the relationship. You are no longer repeating to force a result. You are learning to reside. This learning may continue beneath sleep. The mind does not need to understand every distinction consciously once the body begins resting. The words can become distant. The essential difference remains. A wish reaches toward tomorrow. An anxious affirmation wrestles with tomorrow. An assumption rests in the identity through which tomorrow will be met. You choose rest. The wish says, perhaps. The anxious affirmation says, I must. The assumption says, this is the state I accept. You accept quietly. No need for a great declaration. The deepest decisions are often made without noise. A person may deliberate for weeks, speaking endlessly, and then one evening the decision becomes real. The mind grows quiet. Nothing outward has happened yet, but direction has changed. Assumption is such a decision concerning being. You have decided not to carry the old identity into morning. The outer world may not yet know. The body may still remember. The old thoughts may still knock. But the decision stands each time you return to it. Do not ask whether it is strong enough. Strength grows through occupancy. Do not ask whether you believed perfectly. Belief becomes natural through experience. Do not ask whether one sentence was sufficient. Sufficiency is known by whether you can allow the sentence to end. If you cannot yet allow it to end, be kind. Repeat slowly, not to force, but to settle. The end is selected. The end is selected. The end is selected. Then let the words lengthen into silence. Perhaps the third repetition is softer than the first. Perhaps the fourth is unnecessary. Stop where rest begins. This is your measure, not the number. Rest. If the phrase leads to rest, it has done its work. If another phrase leads to more analysis, leave it. The night is not a laboratory in which you must test every method. Choose simplicity. I have accepted the state from which tomorrow will be met. What state? One of openness rather than condemnation. One of support rather than isolation. One of dignity rather than pleading. One of favorable movement rather than fixed defeat. That is enough. You do not need to name every quality. Let them gather into one atmosphere. Tomorrow is not against me. The sentence may contain them all. Say it as one removing an old accusation, not as one demanding proof. Tomorrow is not against me. No need to imagine every event becoming pleasant. Only cease imagining the whole day as opposition. Tomorrow is not against me. The appointment may require courage. The letter may require attention. The conversation may require honesty. Still, the day need not be your enemy. Tomorrow is not against me. The bridge may contain changes you would not have consciously chosen. Still, the essence may move toward fulfillment. Tomorrow is not against me. Let this become an emotional residence, a world in which life is not constantly preparing to punish you, a world in which the unknown is not automatically hostile, a world in which support may approach through unseen means, a world in which one event remains one event. You are not shouting these ideas into the future. You are allowing them to describe the inner world now. This is assumption. The outer world may follow gradually or suddenly. Do not watch the door. The state is not strengthened by inspection. Turn away from the door and sit within the house. You may hear footsteps eventually. You may receive the letter. The answer may come. The opportunity may reveal itself. But you do not need to remain at the threshold. The one who belongs inside rests inside. Let tomorrow knock when it arrives. Tonight, remain where you have chosen. Perhaps the final thought still wanders. It does not matter. You know the resting place. Perhaps emotion remains imperfect. It does not matter. You know the governing state. Perhaps the phrase fades before sleep. It does not matter. Meaning may remain after language has gone. You have ceased treating words as coins placed into a machine. You have ceased attempting to purchase tomorrow through repetition. You have chosen identity. Now let identity become quiet. I do not have to repeat until the world changes. I repeat only when the words return me to the state. When I am home, I may be silent. I do not have to force the subconscious. I give it the impression of the state accepted. I do not have to shout at tomorrow. I choose the self who meets it. Let these understandings settle without effort. A wish may pass through. That is all right. An anxious impulse may ask for another repetition. That is all right. You do not need to obey every impulse. Return to the room. The room is quiet. The end is present as implication. The bridge remains hidden. The body is permitted to rest. This is assumption without force. This is prayer without pleading. This is the word becoming inward fact. One sentence may remain. I have accepted the state from which tomorrow will be met. Let it become simpler. I have chosen the state. Simpler still. Chosen. Then no word. Only the feeling that the question has been answered inwardly. Not every outer question. The deeper question. Who will I be when tomorrow arrives? Not the one repeating desperately for permission. Not the one standing outside fulfillment. Not the one begging the future to change. I meet tomorrow from the state I have chosen tonight. The sentence ends. Let it end. The state remains.